Chapter 101, Winter's Embrace 1. Who? Danzo exhaled a warm breath, watching it disperse into the icy air as the cold bit into his hardened skin. It's getting colder than I expected. Just moments ago, they had been traveling through a freezing land where snow fell endlessly. But now, the cold had escalated to an entirely different level. Without hesitation, everyone donned warmer clothing. They say if you don't keep moving, your balls might freeze solid here. Selena's voice carried a clear note of amusement as she glanced at Danzo. Though he had the most resilient body among them, she was handling the cold better than anyone else. Danzo smirked. Movement, huh? I know another way to warm up, if you're interested. Selena's expression twisted in disgust. You're shameless. As if waiting for that reaction, Danzo clapped his hands together with a grin. I was talking about fighting, of course. Nothing warms you up like throwing punches and feeling the fire of battle. The brief flicker of embarrassment on Selena's face told Danzo he had struck a nerve. What's with that look? Were you thinking of something else? TSK. How improper. Shut up. Selena resisted the urge to punch him. She had to be patient, they were on a wyvern after all. Meanwhile, Ghost silently observed their exchange, his lifeless eyes recording every detail. He had little interest in their antics, his attention focused elsewhere, on Fry Starlight. For some time now, Fry had sat in brooding silence, his expression dark as if a storm raged within his mind. Ghost's sharp eyes caught how Fry dug his nails into his palms so deeply that his fingers bled. As an assassin, Ghost was adept at reading atmospheres. He had a sense of what Fry was going through. But in the end, it didn't matter to him. What mattered was testing his judgment, confirming whether choosing Fry over Snow had been the right decision. And in just 1 month, he would have his answer. With the Starlight family's internal matters settled, there was no need to keep everyone apart. Their journey was reaching its final stretch. They had already crossed into Winterfell's domain. The Starlight family's massive wyvern flew at the rear of the formation, trailing close behind the Moonlight clan's fleet. Watching this, Selena found herself contemplating something. I know it's a bit late to ask, but isn't flying at this altitude dangerous? The skies are a nightmare in their own right. She had a point. The creatures that ruled these skies were not to be trifled with. The one who answered her wasn't Fry or Danzo, but Carmen, who stood nonchalantly atop the wyvern's head, completely unfazed by the freezing winds. You're right, girl. Normally, this would be suicidal. Carmen gestured toward the Moonlight family's fleet. But there are always exceptions. Her meaning was clear. Flying at this height is usually a death sentence. But with a force like ours, no creature would dare challenge us. A simple explanation, but a logical one. Monsters acted on instinct, and their strongest instinct was survival. No beast would foolishly provoke a force of this magnitude. Everyone absorbed Carmen's words. Everyone except Fry. He had no need for such explanations. As an author, knowledge of this world's workings came to him naturally. Yet, the further they traveled, the darker his expression grew. A change that Ada took particular notice of. And then, moments later, the awaited words arrived. We've arrived. Everyone leaned over the wyvern's side, their eyes widening at the breathtaking sight below. Magnificent! Before them lay the jewel of the West, Winterfell. A vast sea of white stretched beneath them, where snow blanketed the land and scattered trees stood like frozen sentinels. Towering black walls rose high, defying the winter landscape. Inside those walls, the city spread endlessly, its rooftops buried under thick layers of frost. Countless lights flickered in the dim twilight, painting the town in a warm, ethereal glow. But the most breathtaking sight of all was the colossal azure palace nestled at the city's heart. A palace of ice, vast beyond imagination. It pierced the clouds, a monument of unparalleled majesty. The pride of the Moonlight family, Paradiso. Vulcan's voice carried a rare sense of awe as he spoke. They say the Moonlight family's founder, Semiramis Moonlight, sculpted it entirely with her own ice. It has stood unyielding ever since. Hearing that, Everyone fell into quiet contemplation. For over 3 centuries, this palace had endured. Just how powerful had Semiramis Ice been? After taking in one of the world's greatest wonders, the wyverns began their descent. One by one, landing in the vast courtyard before the Palace of Ice. Naturally, they were granted unrestricted entry for 2 reasons. The first, Frost Moonlight, the Lord's own son, was among them. And the second, Ada of the Starlight family, a guest of considerable importance. Yet, Fry remained silent. Fry Starlight's POV. We've arrived. A deeper chill settled in my heart. If this feeling meant anything, it meant I was drawing closer to the one who cursed me. Someone among the Moonlight family was responsible. The question was, who? That question alone would haunt me for nights to come. And now, the moment my boots touched the snow-covered ground, I found myself surrounded by dozens of unfamiliar faces. The Moonlight family had gathered, their main and branch families alike assembled for what seemed to be a grand welcome. Their sky-blue hair and sapphire eyes made them unmistakable. For a moment, they simply observed us, their gazes filled with curiosity. Then, "Sister, welcome back. Sister, I missed you." A wave of young girls suddenly rushed toward Ceres Moonlight. They were all around our age, some even older. Some had even traveled with us from the temple. To an outsider, the sight might have seemed heartwarming. To me, it was mournful. What's with all these girls? Sister, sister, sister. Is she running an orphanage? Danzo looked genuinely baffled. After all, nearly 100 girls had just called Ceres their sister. He assumed it was just a show of affection. But I shook my head. No. They are her sisters. Danzo's eye twitched. What? They share the same blood. They're all daughters of the Moonlight family. A heavy silence followed as everyone turned to me in disbelief. Hold on. There's at least 100 of them. I suppose someone was very active. Sometimes, even in a world like this, things defied reason. As an author, I had only myself to blame. They weren't all from the same mother, but they shared one father. A father who no longer existed. And then, Lord Starlight, welcome back. The lively chatter halted. The crowd parted in 2, making way for a commanding figure. Lord Baylor. Ada stepped forward with a smile, greeting the man who radiated an undeniable presence. His pale complexion, sky-blue hair, and piercing azure eyes made him impossible to ignore. Chapter 102, Winter's Embrace, 2. You didn't have to go through the trouble of welcoming us yourself. Allowing me to stay was more than enough. Haha. How could I be rude to you, my lady? You are always welcome in Paradiso. You have my gratitude. If the air had been cold before, it was suffocating now, with this SS-ranked lord standing so close. Behind him stood a peculiar woman. Her face was expressionless, her black hair cascading over a blue dress. Yet, her mere presence was overwhelming. She bowed to Ada first before shifting her attention to Carmen. It's been a while, Carmen. Carmen smiled at the sight of an old friend. Eleanor, what are you doing? That dress doesn't suit you. Eleanor cast a glance at her attire before giving a blank nod. I thought so too, but Baylor insisted. Baylor chuckled, his vibrant expression at odds with his status as a lord. Oh? Do you really think so? I think it looks stunning on you. A simple yet warm exchange between the lord and his wife. They were known as the strongest duo. Baylor was the most powerful individual in the Moonlight family, and his wife stood second only to him among SS-ranked fighters. Yet, the image they presented now was nothing like the brutal reality of their presence on the battlefield. What made it even more intriguing was their dynamic. Baylor fought from the rear as a wave controller, while Eleanor stood at the front lines as a warrior. An odd contrast, but undeniably powerful. And now, both of them had noticed me. That explained Baylor's look and his smile. Young Fry, it's been a while. His smile was gentle yet unsettling. Just hearing my name was enough to summon an ocean of killing intent. It was so vast, I didn't even bother tracing its sources. Some family members even let out audible scoffs. But in front of them, I merely kept my poker face intact. I gave a slight bow, placing my right hand over my chest. It has indeed been some time, Lord Baylor. You're as radiant as ever. Baylor seemed pleased. He suddenly released his aura, lifting me upright before I could finish bowing. Ha ha! Listen to that silver tongue of yours. The only one who has truly shined lately is you, the man who returned from the dead after spending an entire year in the Nightmare Lands. Now, isn't that a fascinating tale? I chuckled in return. It's not that amazing, but it does make for a decent story. Indeed.
I'm impressed.
How about a drink? You know, to discuss the secrets of your journey. Baylor's eyes bore into me, as if he were peering beneath my very skin. But I held firm, swallowing down the weight of his gaze. Secrets are common these days, Lord Baylor. You can find them anywhere. But sharing them would mean they're no longer secrets, wouldn't you agree? Still, I'd be happy to share that drink. Baylor's smile deepened in satisfaction. Well said, boy. I can see the change in you. A change I welcome. With that, Baylor turned his attention back to the gathered guests, Ada and the rest of the temple delegation. Once again, welcome to Paradiso, the jewel of Winterfell. With a casual clap of his hands, he turned and led the way inside, his wife following closely behind. Just before departing, Eleanor shot me a final glance before turning toward their only son. Father, you've done well. As Baylor busied himself with his son, I turned my attention to the countless gazes of contempt now directed at me, especially after my rather bold exchange with their family's lord. One in particular stood out. Ada must have noticed as she gently held my hand, her expression filled with concern. Fry this. I gave her a reassuring smile. It's fine, Ada. Everything's fine. Among these people, one of them could be responsible for cursing this body years ago. My gaze swept across their faces, analyzing each one. A new journey begins now. Far from Winterfell, in Belgrade, the capital city within the Castlevania province, before the gates of this royal territory, a towering 7-meter spear, shaped like a cross, loomed over the entrance, and nailed upon it was a single, withered old man. Rain poured relentlessly over his battered body. He stretched his tongue out, trying to catch the few droplets that reached him, his disheveled gray hair clinging messily to his gaunt face. His body bore scattered wounds, his dried urine staining his legs. For weeks now, his only sustenance had been pure aura. You look miserable, boy. Bloodmater slowly opened his weary eyes, staring down at a simple, hooded figure standing below. The man stood at a distance, yet his voice felt painfully close. Occasionally, passers-by would throw stones and filth at Bloodmater in disgust. But none of them noticed the hooded figure. Only Bloodmater could see him because the man had allowed it. Bloodmater was about to speak, but the stranger cut him off. No need for words, boy. I can hear you just fine. The former headmaster sneered weakly, sending his thoughts instead. Go to hell. Such words from a broken man. Bloodmater barely focused on the ethereal silhouette before him. He had no desire to speak with this person now. I've told you before. Don't always believe what you see and hear. The world isn't confined to the small space your eyes perceive. And what you hear isn't always the truth. Bloodmater couldn't stay silent after hearing those words. I saw what I saw. I heard what I heard. And I chose to believe what I wanted to believe. Call me broken, call me a fool. But that future must never come to pass. The hooded man slowly shook his head. The future you envision isn't something you can control with your actions alone. At those words, the very ones Bloodmater never wanted to hear, he burst into mad laughter. And who will control it? You? The man who once stood at the peak, possessing the power to change this world, yet now chooses to remain idle? Don't make me laugh. The hooded figure remained silent for a moment before reaching up and removing his hood, revealing a face marred by deep, terrifying scars. His eyes completely gouged out. There are many forces steering the tide. My interference now would only accelerate its flow, perhaps even draw those entities down. The one who showed you that future is one of them. Then, in the blink of an eye, the hooded man vanished, leaving only his words hanging in the air. I've given you a small piece of advice, boy. Since you bear my blood, don't believe everything you see. Your fate is in your hands, yes, but the future of this world lies elsewhere. Consider it my final warning. From a man long forgotten by time. Bloodmater gazed at the empty space where the man had stood. Then he closed his eyes once more, waiting for the right moment. Chapter 103, Paradiso's Hell. Fry Starlight's POV. Line up, everyone. Welcome to Paradiso, the fighter's paradise. You're probably wondering what's happening here and where I am right now. Well, this is my second day inside the Moonlight family's palace, Paradiso. I stood beside my temple team, facing the rest of the students. A muscular man with white hair examined us, his sharp gaze analyzing each one carefully. He had summoned us all to this massive arena, constructed from a special kind of ice. Enduring the cold was part of the training we were about to experience firsthand. My name is Krauser Moonlight. I'll be responsible for you for the next month, so get used to seeing my face, because you'll be seeing a lot of it. General Krauser, a seasoned warrior of the S rank. Ada had been kind enough to share what I needed to know about this family, so I recognized him immediately. You're probably wondering why I've gathered you all here despite your different ranks and specializations. What kind of training has the Moonlight family prepared for you? I'm sure many of you have asked yourselves this question. At his words, muffled laughter echoed from above. I lifted my gaze, spotting a group of spectators, mostly women, watching us from the upper level. That was expected. This was an open training arena after all. Among them, I spotted my sister Ada sitting beside Carmen. All right, it's time for some answers. Krauser clapped his hands, and a gate at the far side of the arena swung open. From it, several figures emerged, strangers to me. This looks promising. Danzo, standing beside me, commented as their auras radiated an overwhelming presence. It was as if the Moonlight family had brought their finest warriors here. Each one of them is a master in their own right. Krauser gestured toward the individuals entering through the gate. For every temple student, one of them will serve as a personal mentor for an entire month. Your progress will reflect back on you within the temple, while at the same time elevating their own status within the family. A win-win for both sides. Let's just say, a month from now, your level will be very different. Oh! Everyone began to grasp the Moonlight family's training method. A one-on-one, closed training with someone vastly stronger than you, hours of intense sparring with an instructor constantly correcting your mistakes. That would certainly accelerate progress. But I had my reservations, and the reason was simple. Now, each of you will be chosen by your respective mentor. One by one, students were selected by their designated instructors. The best among our group, Ceres and Ghost, got the top mentors, their auras beyond S rank. But the real question was, why was I left standing alone again? As everyone else was chosen, I remained in the center of the arena, alone. Sighing in frustration, I called out, "Excuse me, no one has approached me." Krauser turned to me with a scowl, which quickly shifted into a grin. "Don't worry, kid. Your instructor will be here soon." "Will be here soon?" I asked, skeptical. And the moment I did, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the gate. The laughter from the spectators above grew louder. This time, however, it was mixed with sounds of admiration as a breathtakingly handsome young man entered. He had long, icy blue hair and a physique that seemed sculpted to perfection. Frost Moonlight, the Lord's son and the greatest talent in the family, will be your instructor. You should be grateful, kid. I glanced warily between Krauser and Frost. Just what were they planning? The arena was massive. Each student trained separately in designated areas. But for some reason, all eyes were fixed on my training ground. "So, we finally meet, Starlight Disgrace. The way he addressed me made it clear Frost had no good intentions. With a smile that could make any innocent girl swoon, he extended his hand. A blazing blue force swirled in his palm, shaping itself into a colossal, ice-blue spear with a massive blade at its tip, engraved with the image of a great dragon. I observed it with intrigue because I recognized it. That's... The girls above erupted into cheers. Every one of Frost's movements was a spectacle for them. And revealing that spear? That was the climax. The great spear Rimshard, one of the 5 strongest spears in the world. I let out a dry chuckle as he brandished it. Is Lord Frost really planning to fight me with that? Frost scoffed as he drove the spear into the icy ground. Don't flatter yourself, kid. This spear is reserved for those above me. A weakling with mere A-rank talent like you? Not even worth considering. Cracking his knuckles, Frost smirked. For you, my body alone is more than enough. I met his provocation with a blank stare. Fair enough. Drawing my sword, I stepped forward onto the icy platform, focusing entirely on Frost, who remained motionless. Analyzing your opponent before making a move? TCH. Stop wasting time and attack already. His mocking tone was justified. The gap in power was too vast for me to inflict any real damage. After all, he was S-. This wasn't a real fight, it was training. If I thought of it that way, I would have attacked immediately. But for some reason, I knew there was more to this. Unfortunately, I couldn't stand idle forever. I had to make a move. I decided to go all out. Utilizing phantom steps in tandem with my sword's speed, I dashed toward Frost's neck. Yet, strangely enough, he tracked my movement with just his eyes, something I noticed through hawk eyes. Effortlessly, he dodged my attack as if it were nothing. Too slow. I suppose this isn't your specialty. I swung again, but he evaded it just as easily. I began circling him at a speed no ordinary person should be able to track, launching dozens of strikes using Mirage. Yet, each one passed through his body as if he were a phantom. As my sword barely missed his side, he swung his fist in a motion so fast that even hawk eyes couldn't capture it. Before I could react, my world flipped upside down as I was sent flying. The moment I crashed to the ground, the crowd above erupted in cheers. I pushed myself up, wiping my chin with the back of my hand. Blood. My own. I see. I was beginning to understand what was happening here. To confirm my suspicions, I lunged forward once more, my sword aiming straight for Frost's face. But his arm stretched unnaturally, extending beyond my blade's reach, delivering another bone-crushing punch. Before I could even process what happened, Frost chuckled as my head snapped backward from the impact. Then, at last, he took his first step forward. For someone so audacious, you're pathetically weak. Before I could react, a flying kick sent me crashing down again. I barely managed to twist over the ice, narrowly dodging his foot as it smashed into the ground, exactly where my head would have been. The moment I got back up, a relentless flurry of punches followed. Each strike rattled my skull, forcing more blood from my mouth. At some point, I lost track of where all this blood was even coming from. For most people, a sight like this would be unsettling. For the Moonlight family, it was entertainment. Their cheers rang in my ears, growing louder and more obnoxious by the second. The worst part? Frost was holding back. He wasn't going all out. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to end things too quickly. If he had been serious, I would have been unconscious from the very first strike. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the barrage of punches stopped. Frost stood there, smiling down at me. Pick up your sword. Fry Starlight. I forced in a breath, my vision shifting between Frost and the sword lying beside him. I knew exactly what he was trying to do, but I played along anyway. I reached for the sword's hilt, only for Frost's boot to slam down on my hand, pinning it against the ice. Too slow. A sharp kick sent me skidding backward once more. Come again. I pushed myself up and charged toward him. I threw a punch, clumsy, uncoordinated. Frost, in contrast, landed 10 strikes in less than a second. By now, The pristine white gloves covering his fists were already drenched in my blood. As for my face, it had taken most of the damage. More. Crush him. The crowd's chants had turned downright vulgar. What's wrong, Fry Starlight? Maybe I should find you a girl to spar with instead. My vision blurred from the relentless beating. Blood stung my eyes, making it even harder to see. Maybe a weak little thing. So you can use that filthy skill of yours on her? One brutal kick sent me crashing into the frozen wall of the arena. Cough. More blood spilled from my mouth. Shit. Is all of this mine? Among the sea of spectators, only Ada stood on my side. From the start, I had seen her trying to interfere, but each time Carmen stopped her. And for that, I was grateful. They wouldn't kill me, not with my sister watching. But that didn't mean I'd be walking away from this unharmed. Frost was taking his time, stretching out my suffering for as long as he could. I felt a sharp tug as he yanked me up by the hair, forcing me to kneel before continuing his assault. His punches landed with brutal precision, my blood painting the pristine ice in vivid streaks of red. This is too much. Even the other training grounds had fallen silent. Fighters who had been sparring elsewhere had stopped, all of them turning their attention to my so-called fight with Frost. Do something, Carmen. Ada's fists were clenched so tightly her nails threatened to pierce her own skin. Carmen, however, simply shook her head. I can't. But we've already done everything we could, Ada. Carmen's voice was firm. If that boy had actually tried to kill him, regardless of being the Lord's son, I would have stepped in and buried his head myself. But he knows that. That's why he hasn't crossed the line. Yet. With every word Carmen spoke, more blood splattered onto the ice. She hated what she was seeing, but she couldn't interfere. This all falls under training now. All we can do is watch. I already knew this wouldn't stop anytime soon. Between the sound of my own beating and the deafening roars from the stands, I felt nostalgic. For some reason, this reminded me of old friends, ones who used to beat the hell out of me all the time. Then, all of a sudden, Frost's fist stopped right in front of my face. A flicker of irritation crossed his expression. He leaned in slightly, voice cold. Tell me, you bastard. Why the hell are you smiling? Ah, I must have done it unconsciously. Sorry. I don't exactly carry a mirror to manage my expressions all the time. Couldn't help it. Compared to what Smiley and Sad used to put me through, this was child's play. Maybe it was my blood-stained grin that set him off. But Frost's punches suddenly intensified. So this was how they wanted to torture me? Through pain? I found myself laughing at their stupidity. A sound Frost did not like. But how could I not laugh? He had chosen the worst possible way to break me. Because in the end, this kind of pain meant nothing. Not after what I endured in the Nightmare Lands. I was someone who had already died in that forsaken place. And this body? Nothing more than a corpse held together by invisible threads. So tell me, how was I supposed to care about something like this? Today had dragged up old memories, some good, some bad. But more than anything, it had awakened something inside me. I tried to speak, but my throat was too clogged with blood. What are you trying to say? For the first time, Frost's expression shifted. If I remembered correctly, this guy liked Saris, didn't he? You are. Hanska. Ha! Frost leaned in closer. Are you finally going to beg? No. I just wanted to confess something. I struggled to breathe, forcing out the words. Frost's eyes gleamed with anticipation. He pressed down on me just enough to make sure everyone could hear. Looks like Fry Starlight has something he wants to confess. Let's hear it, shall we? Maybe he expected an apology. Maybe he thought I'd beg for mercy. But he made one crucial mistake. He let everyone hear this. I wobbled slightly before straightening up, my voice dripping with mockery. I confess that you're ridiculously handsome, man. Honestly, you might even be a little better looking than someone I know. What? Heh, we should have met sooner. With looks like yours, your mother must be insanely beautiful. Maybe I should have chosen her instead. I exhaled sharply, savoring the silence, then delivered the final blow. Instead of Saris, the tension in the air was delicious. For the first time, Frost's carefully composed expression shattered. I let out a faint chuckle, but this time I didn't stay conscious long enough to enjoy it. Frost immediately struck me down. The last thing I saw was Carmen rushing toward me. Then, darkness. Chapter 104. Hellish Training. Fry Starlight's POV. Ugh, my head. I woke up to a dull, throbbing pain, as if someone was drilling into my skull with something sharp. Waves of discomfort rippled through my body, each one a lingering echo of the beating I had taken. I was lying on a simple bed in a small, dimly lit room, my upper body wrapped in bandages. Across from me sat a familiar woman, watching me with quiet intensity. Carmen, you're finally awake. I pushed myself up, peeling the bandages off my head. How long was I out? A few hours. It's already night. And Frost. I handled it. That was quite the bold statement you made back there. He came at you intending to kill. What the hell were you thinking? I forced a wry smile. I couldn't help myself. That was the only way I could fight back in that state. Carmen gave a small nod, acknowledging my reasoning. As reckless as it was, you weren't wrong. You lost physically, but you won the psychological battle. If you were closer to his level and managed to shake him like that, you could have had a real chance to kill him. Haha, thanks, but I'm nowhere near his level anytime soon. Well, your talent is only a rank after all. Her words made me freeze for a split second before I quickly masked my reaction. She doesn't know my talent has advanced to S rank. Let's keep it that way for now. Where's Ada? Carmen lit a cigarette before answering. She went to deal with the mess you made. I see. I caused her trouble. She took a deep drag, exhaling a cloud of smoke that tickled my nose. The smell irritated me immediately. You do realize you're sitting next to an injured person, right? Shouldn't you at least refrain from smoking here? What are you saying, kid? Are we in a hospital? Besides, you look fine to me, so don't act like some delicate little girl. I can't argue with you. I placed my feet on the cold floor, attempting to stand, but Carmen stopped me. Wait, ignore what I just said. You're in no condition to be moving yet. I gave her a skeptical look before gesturing toward myself. But I'm fine. No, you're not. You were supposed to be out for a full day, then resting for several more. The fact that you're even awake after that beating is a miracle. In response, I began unwrapping the bandages from my upper body. Carmen's eyes widened in shock. My skin was smooth, completely unblemished, free of any bruises or wounds. All that remained was a defined six-pack and a body that showed no trace of the brutal fight I had endured. Told you, I'm fine. You've already healed. She couldn't believe it. My recovery speed was unnatural, inhuman. But I already knew this. My body wasn't normal. Since the Shadow Sect incident, I had suffered hundreds, no thousands, of injuries. And if the wound wasn't fatal, I would always recover fully in less than a day. It was an ability I didn't fully understand, something beyond my current comprehension. Carmen, unable to suppress her curiosity, reached out and ran her fingers along my torso, tracing where wounds should have been. Her prodding was slightly annoying, but I didn't have the heart to stop her. Your body is a walking mystery. As long as it gets the job done, I'm not complaining. I stood up and slipped on a black, long-sleeved shirt. As I dressed, my eyes caught sight of her hand, the one holding the cigarette. It was wrapped in bandages. What happened to your hand? I asked without thinking. Hurting Carmen wasn't easy. Oh, this? I injured it earlier when I tried to block that kid's spear with my bare hand. I underestimated him a little. He stared at her blankly. Was she brave? Or just plain reckless? You seriously tried to stop a legendary spear like Rimshard with just your hand? I wanted to test its sharpness. I pulled up a chair and sat across from her as she recounted her fight with Frost. He had gone all out against her. He was an S rank while Carmen was an S+. Even so, by wielding Rimshard, he had managed to wound her. though he was still nowhere near defeating her. Once you surpass a rank, the power gap between each level becomes massive. The difference between S and S alone is enormous. Frost never had a real chance. In the end, the fight was stopped by outside intervention, after Carmen completely crushed him. But I had to admit, for him to reach that level at his age, no matter how much I disliked him, his talent was terrifying. Winning the Victoriad 3 times was proof enough. What's your plan now? Training tomorrow? I sighed and nodded. Yeah. Though I'll probably just get beaten up again. That's not exactly effective training. She had a point. My body could endure training through sheer beatings, but my progress would be painfully slow. At this rate, reaching C rank, let alone my target C rank, would take far too long. I needed a better approach. Fortunately, Carmen provided one herself. With your absurd healing ability, why not train with me? Are you serious? Yeah, though it might completely break you. I can't be your official instructor under the Moonlight Families program, but I can train you at night. I took a moment to consider. Morning beatings, recovery, then nighttime training. Carmen smirked. Too much for you? I grinned back. No, it's perfect. I was planning to train on my own anyway. I'll make it a 3-part regimen, solo training at dawn, getting beaten up by Frost, then training with you at night. The Victoriad was approaching, and I had a mountain of difficult missions ahead of me. If I wanted to succeed, pushing myself this hard was the bare minimum. My ridiculous words made Carmen burst into laughter. Only lunatics would think the way I did. But luckily, she didn't say anything. Well then, let's begin right away. Yes, my lady. From an isolated room straight into an intense training session with Carmen. Training with her was completely different. She was strict, but unlike Frost, she pointed out the flaws in every movement I made. Bit by bit, she stripped away the unnecessary motions in my attacks. She helped me control my aura better, more efficiently, more practically. Just an hour was enough to leave me drenched in sweat. Yet I relished the heat, the burn in my muscles. It meant I was getting stronger. Slowly but surely, my training with Carmen continued until Ada stormed in, turning the place upside down with her yelling. The look on her face when she saw me wielding a sword instead of lying in bed was priceless. Don't be like that. I already told you I'm sorry. Don't talk to me. Ah! After a quick bath, I was heading to my bedroom, which was right next to Ada's. On our way, we passed several members of the Moonlight family. They threw their usual looks of disdain my way, but I was long past caring. It didn't bother me anymore. Don't be too hard on him, girl. Sometimes, a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. At Carmen's words, Ada turned to her with a cold expression. Carmen, I asked you to take care of him in case something happened, not to have him wielding a sword the moment he woke up. Carmen merely shrugged. I was just granting his wish. I ignored their conversation, focusing instead on my surroundings. We were about to step into the Moonlight family's grand hall. The place was adorned with all kinds of artifacts and artwork. I glanced at them absent-mindedly. For all the resentment I held for this place, I couldn't deny its beauty. One painting after another passed before my eyes, until I suddenly stopped in front of one much larger than the rest. Portrait of a man. I couldn't move past it. This? Carmen and Ada noticed my pause and followed my gaze. Naturally, they both recognized the man in the painting. At the same time, they spoke. Lord Abraham. Father. I took a moment to take in his features. The man looked like me, but older. He appeared to be in his 30s, with a light beard, long black hair, and sharp features. The father of this body's original owner. Both Carmen and Ada grew visibly emotional as they looked at him. What is his portrait doing here? The question left my lips before I could stop it. I didn't like seeing this man. People called him my father, but my real father wasn't here. Carmen answered, her gaze still fixed on the painting. You will find a similar portrait in every home of the great families. Abraham Starlight, wielder of one of the legendary swords, the Dark Sister, the hero of the War of Light, the brightest star within the Starlight family. A hero like him is respected even among the other families. Each word she spoke sent a dull ache through my head. I had always ignored his existence, but this man was a mystery even to me. After all, I had never written a single thing about Fry Starlight's father. He wasn't supposed to be someone important, yet somehow his entire background had changed, as if someone was meddling with my story from behind the scenes. Another unexpected character. But this one was already dead. I didn't want to look at him any longer, so I quickly turned away. Let's go. The one who lingered the longest, her expression the most conflicted, was Ada. But she didn't say much. She simply followed me. That night, I collapsed onto my bed, exhausted, while new thoughts flooded my mind. At the break of dawn, I woke at 5 in the morning, earlier than anyone else. Grabbing my sword, I headed out to train. My body still ached from last night's events, but I pushed through the fatigue and forced myself toward the training grounds. I thought I'd be alone. I wasn't. Someone else was already there, pounding away at the training dummies with his bare fists, his knuckles slick with blood. Danzo? I called his name, making him pause and turn to me. Morning training? I nodded. What about you? Danzo resumed his training, his voice indifferent. Same thing. He was lying. The blood on his hands told me he had been here for a long time already. For a moment, I wondered what was driving him. At this rate, he was going to lose it, even more than me. If he awakened his true potential too early, he'd become yet another major obstacle for me in the Victoriad. But I couldn't deny his efforts. I could feel it, his hunger to grow stronger. How about a spar? You sure it's fine to get beaten up by someone other than Frost? Maybe things will go differently this time. I raised my sword, locking eyes with Danzo. He grinned, cracking his knuckles. By the way, you were pretty damn impressive back there. I liked the way you handled him. Thanks. With that, we both lunged forward, colliding in a friendly match. Strangely enough, that night, I ended up gaining 2 new training partners. Chapter 105, Forms of Pain 1. Inside a dimly lit room, the soft glow of a fireplace cast flickering shadows across the walls. The sight of flames burning within an ice-crafted fireplace was truly an unusual one. The Moonlight family's mansion had stood for countless years, built in the era of the Great War, preserving the echoes of a time long past. 2 women sat side by side before the fire. Ada Starlight's gaze was locked onto the dancing flames, her thoughts seemingly lost in their restless motion. Eventually, she turned to Carmen. Now that they were finally alone, they could speak freely. Is everything ready? Carmen remained silent for a moment before giving a slight nod. It's done. Fry unknowingly helped make it happen. Good. A brief silence settled between them before Carmen spoke again. We've already loosed the arrow, but I have to ask, are you absolutely certain about this? If we're wrong, we'll be responsible for igniting a war between 2 families. Ada responded with a faint, almost weary smile. Isn't it too late to be asking that now? Carmen let out a quiet sigh, closing her eyes for a moment. Then, whatever happens, happens. Fry Starlight's POV. A full week had passed since my arrival at the Moonlight family's mansion, and I had to admit, I was utterly exhausted. Mornings were spent training with Danzo, probably the best part of my day. Despite everything, Frost Moonlight remained my official instructor. Ever since our first day altercation, our training sessions had become completely silent. He beat me to a pulp without saying a word, but our eyes exchanged more than enough. Today, however, something changed. For the first time, Frost abandoned using his fists and wielded an ice spear instead. As expected, my injuries worsened. Bruises had turned into deep wounds, taking far longer to heal. After training, I spent most of my time either unconscious or staggering through the Moonlight Mansion, forced to complete the side quests imposed by the system. This was the worst part of my day. I had planned to avoid the Moonlight family members as much as possible, given their deep-seated hostility toward me, but the system had other plans. From tasks that required me to engage with them for a set period to bolder, more audacious missions like flirtation and the like. None of it improved my reputation. If anything, it made things worse. But I had no choice. I needed as many points as I could get. Once I was done enduring their scorn and contempt, I trained with Carmen at night, the most productive part of my day. Any remaining time was dedicated to solo training or meditation. I slept only 4 hours a day. I was already pushing my limits. Anyone else would have collapsed by now. But I was still standing, and as long as my body could endure, I would keep going. "Are you okay?" I took a few steps back, catching my breath as Danzo also came to a stop. "I'm fine. I should be asking you that instead. Your punches haven't landed on me even once lately." It was early morning and we were sparring again. Danzo observed me with a serious expression. "You're stronger than ever, no doubt. But there's something off about your movements. As if you're—" He hesitated, cutting himself off. "As if I'm what? Never mind. Let's keep going." We both lunged at each other again. Danzo deflected my sword with the back of his hand, trying to breach my defenses. Neither of us could gain the upper hand. We had both improved, especially me. "My training methods might seem extreme, Danzo, but in the end, you're no different from me. No matter how early I try to get here, you're always ahead of me." Danzo dodged my strike and countered swiftly, forcing me back. "We might seem alike, but we're not. You're fighting too many battles at once." I hesitated for a moment, considering his words. "What do you mean?" "You'll understand soon enough." We continued sparring for another hour before finally stopping. Both of us leaned against the towering ice wall of the vast training grounds, catching our breath as we observed our surroundings. From time to time, Moonlight family members passed by, many of them around our age. Danzo scoffed at the familiar sight. "What is up with this bizarre family? Why the hell are there so many kids?" It was a fair question. The former lord of this family, Drogo Moonlight, had countless wives, and he was quite active. The result is everything you see before you. Danzo's expression twisted into something ridiculous as he imagined a single man fathering so many children. What made it even worse was the fact that most of them were close in age, meaning he must have been very active within a short span of time. So, basically, he's a lecherous bastard. But why are his children all girls? Where are the boys? I've never seen a boy call Sarah's little sister, yet hundreds of girls do. What kind of curse is this? I froze at Danzo's question. I don't know. That was something I had no answer for. The dark secrets of this wretched family weighed heavily on me, and the curse wrapped around my heart only made things worse. I had ignored it for some time now, too preoccupied with everything else. But the time had finally come to hunt down the one who had placed this curse upon me. I only had 3 weeks left. Every day, I felt as though my body was freezing from the inside out. It was like a cold blade was slowly carving through my heart. An agonizing sensation. "It's time." Danzo's voice pulled me from my thoughts as several figures began entering the training grounds, one after another. Training would begin soon. Danzo and I stood up. He waved at me with a grin as he walked away. "Good luck with that spoiled brat." "Thanks. I'll need it." Minutes later, I found myself standing before Frost Moonlight. Today marked the serious beginning of my search for the one who had cursed me. To do that, I needed to keep my body intact, at least to some extent. That was why I had chosen to play one of my cards against Frost, despite the limited options I had. My gaze met the arrogant lord of the Moonlight family. The training had already begun, so I unleashed everything from the start. Ascension. Winning against Frost wasn't my goal. I wasn't even trying to pressure him. I simply wanted to walk away from this fight with the least amount of injuries possible. My eyes narrowed, my expression turning cold and empty. All unnecessary emotions vanished, and my mind focused solely on calculating the best course of action. It didn't take long before I found it. Frost was a natural-born warrior. He had trained himself to analyze the battlefield and dissect his opponent's weaknesses, no matter how insignificant they were. That was why he instantly noticed something different about me today. But he didn't hesitate. A massive ice spear materialized in his hands, and in a single step, he closed the distance between us, thrusting forward with a speed that, by my standards, was overwhelming. Luckily, he had placed severe restrictions on himself. That gave me just enough time to track his spear's trajectory with hawk eyes and the doubled aura I could harness through ascension. Now, all that was left was executing my plan. Instead of dodging, I lunged straight toward his spear. The reckless move startled Frost, but it wasn't enough to make him stop, and that was exactly what I had counted on. The tip of his spear was now mere inches away from piercing my stomach. A fatal wound. A sharp sound rang through the battlefield as the spear struck flesh, followed by the steady dripping of blood onto the ground. I was sure those who hated me were ecstatic, yet none of them spoke a word as Frost's spear ran me through. I clutched his weapon, preventing him from driving it any deeper, any further, and the damage would be beyond what I intended. Carmen had almost intervened at first, but when she saw that I was still in control, she stopped. That's enough for today, Frost. Chapter 106, Forms of Pain 2. Frost's brows furrowed. He had clearly stabbed me, yet I showed no reaction whatsoever, making it look almost staged. But as he withdrew his spear, the blood that poured from my wound proved otherwise. That should do, right, Instructor Krauser? The instructor remained silent, his gaze shifting between my face and my injury before finally giving me a hesitant nod. That was all I needed. Holding my bleeding side, I dragged myself out of the arena under the stunned gazes of everyone present. Once I was far enough, I deactivated Ascension and leaned against the wall beside me. Damn, that hurts. For the first time, my expression showed pain. Slowly, I slid down until my back rested against the wall. My breathing was heavy, but I concentrated on my wound, halting the bleeding completely. I couldn't afford to leave it as it was, so I began stitching it up myself. This is hell. I probably shouldn't have relied on Ascension. Even I, the so-called madman, wouldn't have normally considered such an insane plan. But the moment I activated Ascension, I knew there was no way I would escape unscathed, no matter how hard I tried. So rather than leaving the damage to Frost's control, I ensured it was my decision to make. At the last moment, I had shifted my body just enough to ensure his spear struck a non-vital area. Then, I deliberately accelerated my blood flow to make it appear as though I was bleeding excessively. It was a gamble, but it worked. Still, it took more out of me than I had expected. But at least now I would have more freedom to move. Once I finished stitching up my wound, I wiped the blood off my body, changed my clothes, and sat back down, focusing on recovering as quickly as possible. Minutes passed. The hallway I had chosen was eerily quiet. From time to time, a few people passed by. At first, they approached me, likely thinking I was just some random injured person. But the moment they recognized me, Fry Starlight, they immediately stepped away, either cursing me or scoffing in disdain before leaving. It happened over and over again. Enough times for me to recall Danzo's words. You're fighting too many battles at once. Was this what he meant? The damage I was enduring wasn't just physical, but psychological as well. It was too much for one person to bear. But that was fine. It was fine to be alone. This hatred, this rejection, these were emotions I welcomed with open arms. They fueled me. They pushed me forward. They reminded me of my ultimate goal, to return home. So it was fine. I closed my eyes, resting against the wall. Everything's fine. I focused on my recovery. The silence around me was comforting. I hadn't sensed anyone nearby, but the warm breaths tickling my right side told me otherwise. Slowly, I opened my eyes and turned toward the source. A small figure stood beside me. She looked almost like a doll. A tiny girl with white hair, violet eyes, and pale, flawless skin. Even with me sitting on the ground, we were almost the same height. A little girl? She couldn't have been older than 4. She reached out with her small hands, gently touching my right side, exactly where I had been stabbed. Hurts. Her voice was soft and innocent. Her touch was so light that it barely even registered. I placed my hand on her head gently before standing up with a forced smile. No, it doesn't hurt. Taking a deep breath, I fully sealed my wound before glancing back at the girl, who still stared at me with her doll-like face. You should leave, little one. I'm not a good person. I'm Fry Starlight, the one everyone hates. You shouldn't come near me. I turned to leave, but then a small hand grabbed my shirt. What now? She raised both arms toward me. Up, up. I stared at her for a few moments. You want me to carry you? She nodded. Didn't I tell you I'm a bad person? Another nod. And you still want me to carry you? A third nod. Why was I the one doing all the talking while she just kept nodding? She was definitely a strange kid. After a brief staring contest, I sighed in defeat. Lifting her up, I was surprised by how light she was. Lighter than a feather. The moment she was in my arms, she latched onto me, wrapping her arms around my neck. There. Happy now? She nodded again. Was this some kind of game? It didn't seem like she had any intention of letting go anytime soon. I was about to question her again, but I didn't want to risk getting yet another nod, so I just started walking, carrying her along. What the hell was I even doing? I was supposed to be searching for the one who cursed me. Every time that thought crossed my mind, I instinctively loosened my grip to put her down. But the moment I did, she clung to me even tighter, as if she could sense what I was thinking. And so, I wandered for a while, my mind gradually emptying. From time to time, I noticed people staring, some in confusion, others in disbelief. But the girl in my arms shared those glances with me. Then, without realizing it, I found myself standing in front of a massive gate. Huh! How did I get here? As the question crossed my mind, the girl suddenly released me. I granted her wish and set her down. The moment I did, she dashed toward the gate, slipping through a smaller side entrance. I watched her go. It might have seemed like I had been wandering aimlessly earlier, but that wasn't the case. Something had guided me here. Trusting my instincts, I followed her inside. What lay beyond the gate was a library. Towering bookshelves spiraled upward in elegant formations, stretching across multiple floors of a vast, grand space. It was breathtaking. Every surface, every detail, carved from glistening ice, enhancing its ethereal beauty. The sheer number of books was staggering, countless volumes filling the shelves as far as the eye could see. Welcome to Lady Semiramis' library. A voice pulled me from my thoughts. Seated in a wheelchair was a girl with sky-blue hair, dressed in a pristine white gown. The little one from before was clinging to her waist. Though the girl was facing me, her eyes remained closed. She was blind. I stood there, staring blankly at my surroundings. Why was I here? Chapter 107. The Mysterious Library. Fry Starlight's POV. Welcome to Lady Semiramis' library. Silence lingered for a few moments. I was still taking in my surroundings, the towering bookshelves, the spiral-like structure of the place, and then my gaze returned to the girl seated in the wheelchair. Semiramis' library. Was this the institution's library? After another brief moment of contemplation, my attention shifted back to the girl who had just greeted me. Ah, thank you. Forgive my question, but who are you? I hesitated slightly at her question. She didn't seem to recognize me. Don't misunderstand, she continued. I identify people by their auras, but I've never sensed yours before. I could have lied to her, but I chose not to. My name is Fry Starlight. I'm here with the temple's delegation. The moment my name left my lips, her expression shifted slightly. She turned to the little girl nestled in her lap, a soft smile gracing her face. Gently stroking the child's head, she asked in a calm voice, Azura, were you the one who brought him here? The little girl, Azura, opened her violet eyes, glancing at me before looking back at the girl in the wheelchair. Yes. Reem nodded the moment she heard the response. Then everything is fine. She turned back to me, her smile gentle. My name is Rem, and I am the librarian here. You are welcome to stay as long as you wish. She was still welcoming me. I had expected something different after she heard my name. Miss Rem, forgive my question, but do you not know who I am? I know you well, Lord Fry. Yet you're still allowing me to stay? Rem nodded. As long as Azura was the one who brought you here, there is no issue. I see. I moved carefully, my gaze still fixed on her. I didn't want to make any reckless moves. Even entertaining the thought felt dangerous. After all, the girl before me was far from ordinary. Hawk eyes. The moment I activated my enhanced vision, I saw it. An overwhelming aura surging from Reem, so vast that it seemed to press against the very ceiling of the library. This pressure was stronger than Carmen's. Rem smiled knowingly, fully aware of my reaction. Don't worry, Lord Fry. You are my guest now. Apologies. This is just a bit much to process. For a moment, I considered turning around and leaving through the same door I had entered, but I chose to hold back. Perhaps you're looking for something? Rem's question lingered in the air, and I answered vaguely, something like that. The books here hold knowledge accumulated over the last 400 years. Perhaps you will find what you seek. The last 400 years of knowledge. Was there truly such a library in the first place? I searched my memory, recalling the world of my novel. I hadn't delved too deeply into the Moonlight family in the original setting, but I was sure I had never mentioned a library like this. There was no way I could have forgotten something this significant. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration bubbling within me. It felt as if I wasn't the writer, just someone who knew fragments of what was to come. Everything about this was shrouded in mystery. Then suddenly a thought struck me. The last 400 years of knowledge. In that case, I turned to Rem at once. Are there any books here about curses? As if anticipating my question, Rem nodded immediately. There are plenty. Gently setting Azura aside, she gestured toward the upper floor. Azura, would you guide him to the ancient history section? The little girl nodded before running toward me. Upon reaching me, she stopped and held out her tiny right hand. I instinctively took it. Her hand was so small that I loosened my grip as much as possible to avoid hurting her. Rem may have been blind, but she saw far more than I did. That much was evident from the faint smile on her face as soon as Azura reached for me. She seems comfortable around you. I suppose so. I didn't understand why this little girl had been so affectionate toward me from the start, but I didn't mind it. My mind resisted her, yet in the end, I always relented. Azura led the way to the first upper floor, her small hand holding mine as I followed. Rem simply watched us from afar. Are you sure about this, Iceflower? Allowing a stranger to roam freely here. A deep, raspy voice echoed in the air. One only Rem could hear. That was natural. After all, I couldn't see the things that stood behind her. Two eerie phantoms with ethereal forms loomed behind the blind girl, each more terrifying than the other. It's fine. I've never seen Azura act this way with anyone but me. At the very least, he is not a bad person. How many outsiders had set foot in this place over the past 100 years? And how many had she cast out? What happened today was unprecedented. Yet Rem accepted it without hesitation. And at that moment, no one could have foreseen what lay beneath her calm demeanor. Azura led me to a secluded section filled with countless books. Volumes detailing the Empire's history during wartime, particularly the brutal torture methods used on prisoners. A simple chair stood in the middle of the corridor. Lifting Azura, I gently placed her on it. Sit here quietly while I look around. Azura nodded without a word. She was eerily quiet, but I liked that about her. I began scanning the bookshelves, my fingers trailing along the spines of the volumes, until I randomly pulled one out. The moment I read a few lines, my expression darkened. The book described, in unnerving detail, how the Moonlight family had tortured their prisoners during war. The methods were laid out so explicitly that a wave of disgust rolled over me. The more I read, the more hollow I felt. Then my eyes landed on a particular section. Torture through curses. At times, Executioners and high-ranking individuals resorted to cursing their victims, as physical torment alone did not always yield the desired results. A curse imposes powerful restrictions on its recipient, binding them to a strict set of laws and conditions dictated by the caster. Below are examples of how curses can be used. I had read about many different curses. Some could manipulate minds, while others could turn people into slaves. But the explanations were lacking. They didn't give me the answers I needed. Suddenly, I felt a tug on my shirt. Azura. I hadn't even noticed when she had jumped down from her chair or how she had appeared beside me so quietly. In her hands, she held a book with a black cover. She pushed it toward me, signaling that she wanted me to read it. I wouldn't dare brush off this strange girl's actions, so I quickly accepted the book. Thank you. When I gently patted her head, she looked pleased. She really was adorable. Leaving Azura behind, I opened the book. The Four Great Curses. An interesting title. Unlike the previous book, this one delved much deeper. Many people mistakenly associate curses solely with magic. Magic has many branches, and while curses do intersect with sorcery, they are not the same. In fact, the strongest curses do not originate from magic at all. The greatest proof of this lies in the four great curses, each belonging to a prestigious noble family. The curse of the blade and hourglass, exclusive to the Valyrian imperial family. The curse of the Iliad, wielded by the Starlight family. The curse of the black flame, belonging to the Sunlight family. The curse of the frozen heart, tied to the Moonlight family. That last one, the moment I saw the title, a strange sensation washed over me, like a dagger slowly carving into my heart. I wasn't entirely sure, but deep down I knew. This was it. This was what had been afflicting me. Without hesitation, I began reading. The Curse of the Frozen Heart. A terrifying curse that turns its recipient into a slave to the caster. Cannot be removed and remains active at all times. The curse automatically activates whenever the victim is near the caster. It binds the victim's heart to the caster's aura, granting the latter the power to end the victim's life at will. Disobeying the caster's commands results in excruciating pain, agony beyond human endurance. The curse is unstable. If excessively triggered, the victim will die even without a direct order. The longest recorded survival period for a victim under continuous exposure was 30 days. If the victim remains within the caster's range, they will die within this time frame or sooner, depending on their endurance. However, if they distance themselves from the caster, the effects will pause, though the issued commands will never be undone. The more I read, the colder my body felt. These conditions meant I was completely powerless against whoever had cursed me. This was a disaster in every sense of the word. Conditions for casting. The caster must possess an aura stronger than the victim's. If the victim has a stronger aura, they must willingly accept the curse. The caster cannot curse more than one person at a time. Methods of breaking the curse. The caster willingly lifts it. The caster dies, though their commands remain in effect even after death. Note: the Curse of the Frozen Heart is an advanced curse, passed down only among the highest-ranking individuals, and is extremely difficult to learn. What now? I finally understood why the system had given me a 30-day deadline. Even if I did nothing, I would die in 30 days just by staying near the caster. The curse had been placed on the original Fry long ago, meaning the truth behind it lay within his memories. But I had no way of accessing them. All I had were scattered, meaningless fragments. I didn't even know what commands had been imposed on me. So even if I killed the caster, it wouldn't necessarily end the curse. Still, I had a hunch. This was somehow tied to the Moonlight family's secret, the one I knew. And as the book stated, the caster was someone of high rank. That meant everyone I had met on the train was irrelevant. The curse had only activated once we neared Moonlight Manor. At the very least, the one who cursed me was far stronger than I was. I needed to find them before the deadline ran out, and somehow convince them to lift the curse. I let out a dry laugh. Isn't that impossible? Then a thought struck me. The Moonlight family wanted me dead. So why hadn't the caster killed me yet? It should have been effortless. Then why was I still alive? A dull headache pounded in my skull. None of this made sense. I was completely lost. Then, all of a sudden, I felt Azura tug at me again. Her timing was strange, yet perfect. Are you worried about me? Her violet eyes lingered on me for a moment before she extended both arms, silently asking to be carried. This tiny creature was the only warmth in this cold, desolate place. I spent the next few hours trying to learn more about curses. When it got late, I finally left the library, leaving behind both Azura and Reem, who waved at me with a gentle smile. The rest of my day passed in a haze. My mind was consumed, either trying to process what I had read or figure out who had cursed me. I couldn't even focus on training. Everything felt distant. Every so often, a strange coldness would seep into my chest, as if the curse itself was reminding me of my time limit. Desperate, I attempted to remove the curse using the system. The cost was astronomical. Given the difficulty of breaking a curse of this level, gathering the required achievement points in time was impossible. I was on my own. With no other options, I decided to return to that mysterious library. Despite the countless questions surrounding it, that place made me feel at peace. I retraced my steps exactly as I had the night before. I had a sharp memory. I was certain I had found the right path. Yet when I arrived, I felt empty. The library had possessed a massive gate and a smaller entrance beside it, so large and distinct that it was impossible to miss. But now, where the entrance had once stood, there was nothing but a wall of ice. The library had vanished. Chapter 108, Schemes in the Shadows. Fry Starlight's POV. Seriously, it was gone. The massive door, large enough to accommodate 10 people at once, had vanished completely. Should I ask someone about it? No one here would give me an answer. I had wanted to explore that library further, but that was no longer an option. With a reluctant sigh, I turned away and walked down the corridor, oblivious to the pair of eyes that had been watching me all along. Now that I had time before my training with Carmen, I decided to put it to use, finding the one who cursed me. Someone of high status. Someone stronger than the original Fry. My expression turned blank at that last thought. Everyone in this castle was stronger than the original Fry. The SSS rank aura had only appeared after I arrived in this world. At best, Frey's aura had been a mere D rank. First, I needed to rule out those who wanted me dead. If one of them was responsible, I wouldn't be standing here. No, it had to be someone hidden in the shadows. Someone who had yet to reveal themselves. I needed to draw them out. Lost in thought, I eventually found myself back in the grand hall of Moonlight Castle. The place was lined with portraits of dozens of individuals, each one a figure who had carved their name into history. Among them was the father of this body, Abraham Starlight. One by one, I observed the different historical figures. Some I recognized, others I didn't. Then I reached a frame much larger than the rest. Standing before it was a familiar figure, gazing at it with a vacant expression. Saris. Of course, she had already noticed me. How ironic. In a place this vast, the two people who shouldn't have met were the ones who did. But this time, I didn't ignore her. Frey's body was no longer beyond my control, and there was a chance I could get some information from her. So I approached her. Our paths cross again, Saris. As always, she masked her emotions perfectly, her face unreadable. What do you want? Unlike before, nothing. I turned to the portrait she had been staring at. A man in his 40s. White hair, a strong physique, a light beard, and sharp features. Lord Drogo Moonlight, huh? Just saying his name was enough to make her expression waver, if only for a moment. A name she didn't like hearing. I knew I wouldn't get a normal conversation out of her, so I decided to push a little further. Still thinking about your late father, are you? Stop. Don't talk about him. Just leave. I don't want any of this. So she couldn't stand my presence. Huh? I smirked and asked, Tell me, do you wish for my death? She didn't answer. She just stared at me with those crystal-like eyes. But I caught her off guard when I pulled a slender sword from my ring and tossed it at her feet. If you want to kill me, then do it. Unlike everyone else in this castle, you're the only one with the right to. Saris glanced at the sword, then back at me. What game are you playing? I frowned. No game. I'm just tired of watching your family try to kill me while you sit there like it has nothing to do with you. I took a step closer. Pick it up and do it. Despite my provocation, she didn't move. She was good at hiding her emotions. But not from me. Rose would be proud to see you standing your ground like this. Like a storm tearing through everything in its path. The calm shattered. Any trace of composure vanished, replaced by pure hatred. Ha! That expression suits your face better. Where did you hear that name? Her cold aura surged, swirling around her in waves, but I paid it no mind. Where? Come closer, and you'll get your answer. She was seriously considering attacking me now. But what truly surprised me was the fact that she held herself back. Just how much self-control did she have? Show your true colors. Come at me. Like you did with the Mad Lord. Ugh! The moment I said those words, I collapsed to one knee, clutching my chest. Thump, thump, thump. Ha! A cold breath escaped my lips as my vision blurred. An unbearable chill coiled around my heart, tightening like a noose. The curse activated? I struggled to focus, searching for anyone who might be nearby. But the only one standing before me was Saris, now holding the sword I had tossed her. Frozen in place, racked with pain, I could do nothing but stare. Does it hurt? She asked, her voice calm, almost mocking. I couldn't answer. Only wisps of cold air escaped my lips. With a swift motion, she drove the sword into the ground before me, returning it. You will die, Fry Starlight, but not today. The icy grip around my heart tightened, rendering me completely immobile. It wasn't just the pain. It was the sheer, crushing effect of the curse. I was utterly powerless. That's enough. A slender hand rested on Saris's shoulder, gently pulling her back. Ada, my sister. Ada exchanged a glance with Saris before offering her a small smile. Forgive my brother's rudeness, Saris, but let me handle him from here. The two locked eyes for a brief moment before Saris finally stepped back. With that, she turned away, her icy expression returning to normal, leaving me alone with Ada. Even after Saris left, the curse continued to gnaw at my heart, keeping me completely frozen. Had I unknowingly violated one of the caster's commands? Or had they activated it deliberately? But Saris, she seemed to know about the curse tormenting me. Could she be the one who cast it? I couldn't think clearly, not with the waves of unbearable cold racking my body. As I shivered, Ada placed her hand over my frozen heart. It's okay, Fry. Ada. She pulled me into a firm embrace, allowing the frigid chill to seep into her as well. You don't have to do anything. Just keep going as you have until now. I tried to push her away, but my body was too weak, utterly drained of strength. Even my jet-black hair had begun to fade, streaked with hints of white. I knew this damn curse was devastating. That was exactly why I didn't want Ada to bear its burden. Yet she held on tightly. Your sister will handle everything. It will be okay, Fry. What? I wanted to ask what she meant, but my mind couldn't hold out any longer. The last thing I felt was the overwhelming force of the curse tightening its grip on me, stronger than ever before. Then, darkness swallowed me whole. I awoke on a familiar bed, with the same woman seated beside me. Carmen. Here we go again, kid. It was the same room, the same bed as last time, when Frost had knocked me unconscious. I've been blacking out too often lately. Instinctively, my hand went to my chest. The pain was gone, but a lingering cold still coiled within me. Then, a sudden memory resurfaced, the last thing before I lost consciousness. Ada. What was she planning? Her words still echoed in my mind. I'll handle it. Handle what? Did she already know what I was suffering from? I needed answers, and the person who could give them to me was sitting right in front of me. Carmen. What the hell is going on here? What's going on? I'm about to have a smoke. She lit a cigarette, using it as an excuse to sidestep my question. Ada. She's up to something. Carmen exhaled a slow stream of smoke, gazing at the ceiling before looking back at me. That girl would do anything for her family, and right now you are her family. So understand that well, and don't make things any harder for her from now on. I met her gaze. You still haven't answered my question. Carmen shook her head. Ask her yourself. I'm not the one you should be looking to for answers. I let out a frustrated sigh. Answers. That's the one thing I haven't gotten at all. Pushing myself up, I steadied my senses. Carmen smirked the moment she saw what I was doing. Already thinking about training? Let's go. I needed to move, to wield my sword and silence the chaos in my mind. And in part, it was because I had realized who the caster of my curse was. It was just a hunch, but it was the worst possible one. Out of the thousands of people in this damned castle, I had the worst of them all. I truly was cursed. Meanwhile, while Fry chose to silence his thoughts and immerse himself in training with Carmen, another of the same bloodline wandered through the castle corridors, following the signs leading her to a certain hidden place. After an hour of relentless searching, Ada finally came to a halt before a massive gate. An eerie structure, standing in the heart of a vast hall. The door was there, yet beyond it nothingness. But what was hidden was far greater than what was seen. Of course, the time for this gate to open had not yet come. So, just as Fry had done before, Ada entered through the smaller door at the side. The moment she stepped inside, she found herself in a colossal library. At its center sat a blind girl in a wheelchair. The girl smiled at Ada, but Ada did not return the gesture. What brings you here, Lord Starlight? I came seeking the truth. Ada strode forward, unfazed by the pressure Rem exuded. The blind girl had been moments away from expelling her. After all, Ada was an uninvited guest. But Ada had already anticipated her intent. Before Rem could act, Ada raised the back of her hand. A strange symbol flared to life, blood red, as if painted with fresh blood. The instant it glowed, Rem recognized it instantly. Your lady will not be pleased if you turn me away, Iceflower. Rem's expression darkened before she let out another smile. Ada Starlight, just like the Starlight Lords before you, you are anything but easy to deal with. Not at all. I'm a terrible lady to this family. Everything I do now is for just one person. Rem already knew who she was talking about. Her brother, Fry Starlight. I don't know how you uncovered my lady's secrets, but very well. You shall have what you seek. Rem's aura flared, sending waves of immense energy rippling through the air. The time has come to unveil the secrets of this family. Chapter 109, New Power. Fry Starlight's POV. The clock had just struck midnight. After an intense training session with Carmen, I used the remaining time for solo practice. Carmen sat nearby, immersed in her meditation. I assumed she was training as well, but I paid her little attention. The searing heat coursing through my muscles demanded all my focus. My heart pounded violently as my strength surged, little by little. Finally, after relentless training and consuming the finest starlight elixirs, I could feel it, a breakthrough approaching. With every swing of my sword, the aura radiating from my body grew stronger, more potent, until I suddenly froze in place. A dark violet light engulfed me. I'm breaking through. The moment black, blood-tinged sweat seeped from my pores. I knew. I was undergoing a transformation. My body was purging impurities, reshaping itself into something stronger. But because I had forced the process rather than letting it occur naturally, the pain was unbearable. For an entire hour, I endured the torment, my body convulsing, drenched in sweat. Then, at last, the agony subsided. My body finally settled. I lifted my hands, studying the changes. My skin had become clearer, and my entire body felt lighter, significantly so. But more importantly, my aura reserves had expanded drastically. Finally, rank C. At long last, I had left rank D behind. From rank C onward, training would only grow harsher, and the gaps between ranks would become much more pronounced. Fortunately, I had already raised my talent to rank S. Otherwise, reaching rank C, this quickly would have been impossible. But now a new problem loomed: rank C. My mission required me to reach it before the month's end. That left me with only 20 days. Even with my current insane training pace, I wasn't sure if I'd make it in time. Should I increase my talent again? No. That would cost me 8,000 achievement points, an amount I didn't have. Then what? As I pondered my next move, a powerful surge of aura erupted nearby. I turned toward the source, Carmen. She sat with her eyes tightly shut, her body radiating an intense white light. One look at her, and I immediately understood what was happening. She's at a bottleneck. Carmen was currently at the peak of rank S+, just one step away from rank SS-. Curious, I took a seat at a distance and observed. Were high-rank training methods still the same as I had written, or had they changed? I wanted to know. For hours, I split my focus between my own meditation and stealing glances at Carmen whenever possible. Then, at last, she opened her eyes with a scowl. That look told me everything. She had failed to break through. Satisfied with my findings, I smiled. At the very least, high-rank training methods remained unchanged. Carmen looked frustrated, but she quickly noticed my presence. One glance and her sharp eyes caught on. You broke through. I nodded. Yeah. I entered rank C a few hours ago. She seemed skeptical, falling into deep thought. Tell me, how long did it take you to go from rank D+ to C-? I'm not entirely sure, but I think around a month, maybe a little less. My answer only deepened her doubts. You advanced that quickly, despite your talent only being rank A? Ever since I returned from the Nightmare Lands, Carmen had sensed something off about me, and now I was feeding into her suspicions even more intentionally. Credit goes to your hellish training and Ada's support. No. Even with that kind of training, this speed is still unnatural. And what about you, Carmen? I steered the conversation away from myself, hoping to stop her from prying further. Me? Yeah. You're close to breaking through, aren't you? Ordinarily, she should have been pleased. But she wasn't. If anything, she seemed frustrated. You don't understand a damn thing, kid. Oh, but I do. I know you need external help to break through. Carmen scowled. I had hit the mark. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if she had been stuck at the peak of rank S+4 over a year. After reaching rank S, the gaps between tiers became massive, practically different worlds. Many spent their entire lives training, yet never surpassed rank S, no matter how hard they tried. Take Frost Moonlight, for example. A prodigy who tore through the ranks at an astonishing pace. But now that he had reached rank S-, his progress had slowed to a crawl. As for Carmen, from what I knew, her talent was SS at best, meaning she was nearing her limit, which explained her stagnation. At this stage, awakened individuals like her needed external assistance, someone with a higher aura level to help them shatter the barrier preventing their breakthrough. That meant she needed someone at rank SS or higher. This was why the Starlight family hadn't produced an awakened of that level since Abraham. Their strongest members had only ever reached rank S+. Of course, there were rare exceptions like Snow, those capable of surpassing their limits without external aid. But Carmen wasn't one of them. Seeing that I was well aware of her situation, Carmen sighed in frustration. In the past, we had Abraham. If he were still alive, we wouldn't be struggling with something like this. Carmen always changed when she spoke about him. Abraham Starlight, the father of this body. She even helped me solely because she owed him a debt, or so she claimed. But was that really all there was to it? Carmen, Abraham, my father. What was he to you? Her brow furrowed the moment I asked. At first, I wasn't sure. But now I was almost certain. Call it an author's intuition. With a sly grin, I asked her casually, "You loved him, didn't you? Am I wrong?" Carmen's eyes widened in shock. Bingo! I was right. I had suspected it for a while but dismissed the thought at first due to the age difference between them. But then I remembered, age gaps worked differently in this world. Applying my past world standards here had been a mistake. Suddenly, I felt an oppressive force as Carmen ran her fingers through her hair, clearly irritated. "This age, you're really starting to get on my nerves, kid." With that pressure alone, she locked me in place. I couldn't move. "Do you think that just because you reached that weak rank C-, you're qualified to mess with me?" She flicked my chest with her finger. "You're still just half a man who doesn't know his place. I can't even use you for my own needs. Yet you have the audacity to play games with me?" Carmen's finger barely tapped my chest, but each touch sent a shockwave of force through me, making my organs tremble. Yet I simply laughed at her words. "I'm not trying to play games with you, Carmen. I'm making you an offer." She paused, withdrawing her hand, giving me space to speak. "What are you talking about?" A smirk tugged at my lips the moment she asked. "I can help you break through to rank SS, the goal you've been chasing for so long. In fact, I can make you even stronger." Her expression remained unreadable, but the look in her eyes was clear. She thought I was insane. She let out an exasperated sigh, shaking her head. "Focus on your training and survival, kid. Stop spewing nonsense." She turned away, intending to leave, but I called out to her. "Strange, isn't it?" She stopped. My training speed, how I managed to land a hit on you before, how I survived for an entire year in the Nightmare Lands. Tell me, does any of that make sense?" She hesitated. Even she couldn't fully explain those things. "If you can accept all that, then why refuse to believe that I can help you reach rank SS? Damn, I never realized how persuasive I could be." Carmen slowly turned to face me, her gaze searching. I had her attention now. Extending my hand, I smiled. "I'll make you far stronger than you ever imagined. So, Carmen, become mine." "Do you even realize what you're saying, kid?" Oops, maybe I went a little too far. "I know exactly what I'm saying. Form a contract with me. I'll give you power. I'll share my secrets. In return, you'll be my eyes, my hands, and my sword." Carmen suddenly burst into laughter. "You want me to serve you? Kid, you're the boldest young man I've ever met. I'll give you that. I can't remember the last time someone dared to speak to me like this." "Then think of it as a partnership," I countered. "Carmen, you were willing to do anything for my father. Now, I stand before you as his son. Why not give this a chance?" Perhaps the only reason she hadn't blown my head off yet was the fact that I was Abraham Starlight's child. But I had to take this risk. I needed strength to survive in this den of wolves. And who better than Carmen? "That's enough. I don't want to hear any more of your nonsense. Your father has been dead for a long time. Don't use his name to bargain with me." "Then how about this?" I took a slow step toward her. "I'll prove that I can make you stronger. If I succeed, will you at least consider my offer seriously?" Carmen fell silent, lost in thought. To her, I was just a reckless boy. But even she knew appearances could be deceiving, especially in my case. Somehow, I had convinced her to give me a chance. "If you're messing with me, Fry, don't blame me for what happens next." I gave her a lopsided smile and immediately set my plan in motion. "Since you've agreed, let's begin." She raised a brow. "Begin what?" Cracking my knuckles, I stretched. "Your training, of course." She looked at me like I was an idiot but followed my instructions nonetheless. I had her sit in the center of the training field. Then I positioned myself behind her. "Listen, kid. The only way to speed up my training is with the help of someone who has far greater aura than me. And that's exactly what I'm about to do." Now, she was completely lost, especially when I placed both hands on her back. "I'm going to assist you. Try drawing aura from me. I can't control it properly yet." Her patience was wearing thin. And just how the hell will your pathetic rank C aura help me? I sighed. This conversation was dragging on longer than necessary. Just trust me, Carmen. Do as I say. She hesitated, then reluctantly closed her eyes. Abraham, I swear I'm trying, but your son. Gritting her teeth, she allowed her aura to connect with mine. A scorching pain ignited inside me. The aura channels within my body flared violently. From the outside, glowing violet veins pulsed beneath my skin. The pain was unbearable, but I had no choice but to endure it. Finally, as Carmen forcibly pulled my aura out, it was like a shattered dam unleashing a devastating flood. See, kid? I told you. There's no benef. Harj. Carmen's scream tore through the air. A monstrous force surged through her body. Her cries echoed as the overwhelming aura of rank SSS drowned out her own. It took only 5 seconds before her body was drenched in sweat, her breathing ragged. She gasped for air, her eyes twitching as if they were about to burst from their sockets. What the hell? With great effort, she turned to face me, only to see a body on the verge of exploding. Violent purple light surged beneath my skin. My eyes empty, glowing with the same ominous radiance. Rank SS plus? No. It's far beyond that. Carmen struggled to compose herself as her ironclad self-control crumbled. This power, it surpasses Emperor Mikar himself. She clenched her eyes shut, trying to process what she had just experienced. That barrier preventing her from reaching rank SS. The one she couldn't even scratch for years. The moment she connected with a boy far weaker than her, it had begun to crack. But she wasn't the only one training here. By forcing out the ocean of aura trapped within me, Carmen had put me through excruciating pain. But in return, it would accelerate my progress. Right now, I was subjecting my aura channels to a pressure they couldn't withstand. It was only a matter of time before they burned out completely. But once they healed, they'd return far stronger. And that was my bet. I would break this body, let it heal, then repeat the cycle over and over. Each time, I would grow stronger until I reached my goal. It was a reckless gamble, but it was my only way to climb the ranks before time ran out. 2 birds with 1 stone. That was my plan. A trickle of blood dripped from my nose as I approached my limit. Yet my grin only widened. Carmen, you're mine now. Chapter 110. Secrets of Moonlight 1. Shall we uncover it? The past that everyone sought to hide. Rem's body radiated an intense glow, her aura rippling through reality itself. In an instant, the library vanished, replaced by an endless white expanse where she and Ada now sat. Ada hesitated, glancing around before shifting her gaze back to the blind girl before her. I didn't expect you to give in so easily. Rem shook her head calmly, the same serene smile never leaving her face. That girl is important to my lady. I won't lie to you. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Ada frowned, unsettled by Rem's unexpected response. You anticipated my arrival? Not exactly, but I knew something like this would happen eventually. Though, I must admit, I have no idea how you managed to acquire the entry signals, let alone find this place. The Library of Semiramis, a long-lost secret of the Moonlight family. Its location constantly shifted, and even if someone happened to pass by, they wouldn't see it, concealed by powerful enchantments that veiled it from all but those who were meant to enter. To step inside, one needed either sheer luck or an invitation. But what few throughout history knew was that hidden signals marked its existence. Signals long thought to be lost. And yet, Ada Starlight had not only tracked them down, but had secured a powerful bargaining chip against the library's guardian, the ultimate gatekeeper. Even Rem herself was baffled that Ada had made it this far. Ada lowered her head, recalling the events of a month ago. That man. No, that thing that had appeared in her office. His words. The grim future he had shown her. She shut her eyes tightly before opening them again, a renewed determination burning within them. I have my ways, she said cryptically. Rem, however, did not pry. She simply nodded. Very well. If we are to speak of this family, we must go back decades into the past. The empty void around them began to shift, colors bleeding into the white space, shaping vivid images and memories so lifelike they seemed undeniable. Ada stared in awe. You can summon memories of the past? Of course. This library has existed since the very founding of the family. Its walls have recorded everything. They now stood in a lush garden enclosed within a vast glass dome. Two children ran between the plants, both bearing the same striking features. Sky blue hair and pale complexions, the very essence of the Moonlight bloodline. Ada recognized them immediately. The current Lord, Baylor Moonlight, and his elder brother, the former Lord, Drogo Moonlight. Rem nodded, satisfied. You recognized them even at this age. Impressive. Ada didn't react to the praise. Given her position as a lord, and even before that, as someone who held a high rank within the Starlight family, this level of knowledge was expected. Why are you showing me this? Because this is where it all began. The two brothers played together. The elder, confident, always leading. The younger, timid, always following behind. Both were exceptionally gifted, their affinity with aura evident even from a young age. The strange aura surrounding them was proof enough. They had been favored by that power since birth. The scene shifted to their training sessions. Ada observed silently. Meanwhile, Rem narrated with a steady voice. The Moonlight family was at its peak. The Lord's sons both displayed terrifying talent from an early age. As if to confirm her words, young Baylor conjured an ice shard in his palm, launching it with enough force to leave a deep scar on the thick glass wall. A wide smile spread across his face as he turned toward his father, eager for the praise he longed for. Then, a deafening explosion. Everyone turned toward the source. A massive hole had been blasted into the same wall, utterly destroyed by a single strike. By his elder brother, Drogo. The third lord of the Moonlight family, their father Eamon saw greatness in that boy. He saw a talent that could elevate the family to its pinnacle. And so, he gave him everything. This scene played out again and again. Drogo Moonlight's power grew at an overwhelming rate. The constant praise he received built an ambition worthy of his strength. The strongest beneath the heavens. The arrogance of a young lord. But his confidence was not misplaced. He truly desired to stand at the peak. Throughout his youth, Drogo Moonlight's back never touched the ground. As a wave controller, he was a living calamity on the battlefield. A force of absolute destruction. Ada listened intently, absorbing both the words and the spectacle before her. But while Rem's focus remained on Drogo Moonlight, Ada's eyes were drawn elsewhere. To another person. Someone who was also powerful, immensely so. In any other setting, he would have stood at the very top. And yet, he was still far from reaching his elder brother. His expressions. The way he always stood in the background. She saw it all. Before her very eyes, Baylor lived within his brother's shadow. She took special note of this, because she had once walked the same path. When Fry was chosen as the Lord instead of her. In a way, she understood Baylor's feelings. But she didn't dwell on it. Rem's focus was solely on the elder brother. The scenes continued to shift, revealing Drogo Moonlight at 17, standing at the gates of the temple. A young man with ambitions that shook the heavens. From the moment he entered, he stood above his peers. That much was undeniable. And yet, despite everything, he was ranked second. Because first place belonged to none other than the current emperor himself. Mikar. Of course, someone like Drogo would never accept such a thing. So he challenged Mikar, who was still a prince at the time, to a direct duel. A legendary battle unfolded. The power they displayed was far beyond what children their age should have been capable of. And for the first time in his life, Drogo Moonlight tasted defeat. But even in loss, it had been an exceptionally close battle. Ada watched in awe as two young men, no older than her brother, clashed in battle. Before her very eyes, she witnessed a breathtaking display of power. Mikar and Drogo were like mighty sharks in a sea of small fish. they stood far above their peers. And despite his defeat, Drogo Moonlight's will remained unshaken. After all, his battle with Mikar had been evenly matched, and the Emperor had only emerged victorious by the narrowest of margins. For the first time, Drogo had found a true rival. From that moment on, he began forging his strength and character, molding himself into the proud and domineering lord of the Moonlight family. He carried himself like a king, wielded immense power, unyielding arrogance, and the presence of a ruler. Upon reaching adulthood, he indulged in drinking in moderation, embraced his desires without restraint, and took any woman he wished. With his younger brother, Baelor, as his right hand, the Moonlight family thrived like never before. He had everything he had ever desired. "This sounds like a happy story so far," Ada remarked indifferently, and Rem nodded in agreement. "That's what I thought as well." With a wave of her hand, the scene continued shifting, leading them toward a pivotal event. The World Summit, an exclusive gathering attended only by the lords of the great families and the Emperor himself. By this time, Drogo had already ascended as Lord of Moonlight, while Mikar had rightfully claimed the throne. Both had reached SS rank. But on that day, for the first time, the unexpected happened. From the great doors of the hall, a man entered. Dark-haired, younger than them, yet somehow his presence eclipsed their own. Ada's eyes widened in shock. "Father!" That man was none other than Abraham Starlight. For generations, the Starlight family had been known for their distinct white hair. Only those of the lesser branch carried black hair. Abraham clearly came from a lower lineage, yet somehow he carved his way to the top, above those who believed themselves to be the true nobility. The appearance of that man was the beginning. Ada's expression darkened, a storm of emotions brewing within her. For the first time in years, she saw her father, the man she had barely known, walking, breathing, alive before her. "What does my father have to do with all this?" Rem's voice was calm as she answered. "He was strong." The scene shifted again, revealing more of the past. A lord of Starlight, a man of lesser blood, younger, raised in worse conditions, yet he fought his way to stand as an equal. What unfolded before them now was the first clash between Abraham Starlight and Drogo Moonlight. Ada's lips parted slightly in disbelief. "Is that my father?" The battle she witnessed was on an entirely different level. Both men had reached SS rank by then. But the key difference was the young lord of the Starlight family. Wielding a terrifying black sword in his right hand, he moved like a phantom across the battlefield, shrouded in a brilliant, star-like aura that swallowed all light around him. Drogo's ice, powerful enough to shatter mountains, was reduced to fragments in mere moments. With each swing of his dark blade, Abraham unleashed monstrous force, and in the blink of an eye he utterly crushed Drogo Moonlight, one of the greatest Starlights, and the wielder of one of the 7 legendary swords, Dark Sister, Abraham Starlight. But to Drogo, Abraham was something else entirely. He was not like Emperor Mikar, who had been his equal. No. He was far stronger. For a tyrant like Drogo, such a loss was a devastating blow to his pride. Over the years, he challenged Abraham 10 times. And 10 times he lost. He trained relentlessly, pushed himself to his absolute limits, even broke into the rare SS Plus rank. Yet no matter how much he grew, his opponent was always a step ahead. Despair gradually took root in Drogo's heart, gnawing away at his ambitions. Alongside his training, Drogo indulged himself in other ways. Ada's expression twisted in disgust as a horrific sight unfolded before her. Drogo violating a young woman with brutal force. Drogo was changing, slowly, but surely. Yet even then, he tried to hold himself together, desperate to catch up to that man. He had sought to be the strongest under the sky. But Abraham Starlight was a star beyond the sky, something beyond his reach. If his rival had been a demon or a ruler, Drogo might have accepted it. But a human, worse, a human of lesser blood? What had begun as a challenge, a struggle to surpass that man, soon turned into despair. Drogo reached his limits, unable to close the gap no matter how hard he tried. He saw only Abraham, but he failed to realize that others had begun watching him from the shadows. Frustrated, he sought relief through his own vices. And so, his descent truly began. That was when he gained the infamous title, the Mad Tyrant. He drank excessively. He killed without restraint. And he satisfied his lust without limits. The scenes repeated, countless women taken, countless children born. So many that it was almost laughable. And now, Rem murmured, as the world around them twisted. We have reached the incident that shattered everything. Reality shifted, and Ada and Rem found themselves in the midst of a battlefield. A war unlike any other. Ada's breath hitched. This is. Rem's voice was solemn. The War of Light. The greatest war this world has seen in the past 100 years. The war that changed everything. Chapter 111. Secrets of Moonlight 2. The War of Light. The war that turned the tide in the Empire's favor against the Ultras 15 years ago. It was fought only here, in the Empire's western lands, where the Ultras' ships covered the sea like a swarm of locusts. A war of equals, both sides unleashing their full might. But one force tipped the scales. A human demon, Dragoth, the former leader of the Ultras. He was terrifying enough to be compared to the highest-ranking demons, and some claimed he even surpassed Astaroth, the 19th among them. But the Empire had its own monster, Abraham Starlight. One wielded the Moonlight Sword, the other the Dark Sister. Their battle eclipsed the war itself. Not since the legendary era had the world witnessed such a clash. Every swing of their swords could erase an entire S-class awakened. Ada stood beside Reem, both watching the cataclysmic duel. A battle that reshaped the very continent. Ada was sharp, too sharp to miss something crucial. No matter how I look at it, when comparing both sides, the Empire was clearly stronger. An alliance of noble families and great guilds. 3 SS+ ranked powerhouses, Abraham, Emperor Mikar, and Lord Drogo. Countless SS-ranked warriors beneath them. So why was Abraham Starlight facing Dragoth alone? No matter how she looked at the Dark Lord, Dragoth was not human. He was something foul wearing a man's skin. Ada's mind swirled with questions. But beside her, Rem only shook her head. What happened that day remains buried in the memories of those who were there. The war had reached its climax. Ada watched with bated breath as her father clashed with that thing. The battlefield a vision of hellfire and ruin. Rem, seated calmly, spoke in a quiet voice. Abraham was never supposed to fight that monster alone. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. At that moment, a thunderous explosion split the skies, drowning the battlefield in blinding light. But then again, who was Abraham? From the wreckage and smoke, a lone figure emerged, dragging behind him a monster's mutilated corpse. If Dragoth was the greatest beast to ever live, then Abraham was the miracle that wiped such beasts from existence. Ada's breath caught in her throat. Her father stood there, unharmed, victorious. Dragoth's corpse, a mangled mass of flesh and blackened blood, lay discarded at his feet. This isn't what I was told. Ada's mind reeled as she tried to reconcile what she saw with the stories she had always believed. It was said that Abraham barely won, defeating Dragoth but succumbing to his wounds soon after. But what she was seeing now was something entirely different. Her father had walked away without a scratch. That man, Abraham Starlight, is a mystery even to me. In all my years, I've never seen anything like him. Rem's voice was unreadable. What they were watching was a memory, preserved like a film playing before them. Then, Abraham's expression changed. Ada couldn't decipher it. Joy, hope, fear. An overwhelming blend of emotions flashed across his face. Without warning, Abraham tossed Dragoth's corpse aside, as if it were nothing. Then, in a single step, he vanished. A streak of light burned in his wake. Only a select few knew what truly happened at that moment. Abraham had disappeared. At the time, Everyone believed he was still fighting Dragoth. They took advantage of his supposed sacrifice to drive the Ultras back. And they succeeded. I don't understand. Where did my father go? Rem shook her head. I don't know. A pause. Then she continued. All I know is that he returned soon after. And when he did, a figure fell from the sky, crashing into the battlefield's ruins. Abraham. Ada stiffened, a strangled gasp escaping her lips. This wasn't the same man she had seen moments ago. The instant he landed, one of Starlight's greatest warriors collapsed to his knees. The body that had once carried immeasurable power was now broken beyond recognition. His right arm, once untouchable, began to crack, leaking a strange, blackened substance. And then, slowly, his arm turned to dust. His blood spilled freely onto the ground. Father! Ada lurched forward, but she couldn't reach him. This was just a memory. She clenched her fists, trying to suppress her emotions. Then she saw it. Her father was holding something. A child's wails filled the air. A baby, barely a year old. Despite his fading strength, Abraham smiled, cradling the child in his remaining arm. And just like that, the crying stopped. A small boy with soft black hair and pale skin. That's Fry. Ada's heart pounded in disbelief. Her brother? Here? In this moment? Fry lay nestled in their father's arms. But Abraham's body was falling apart. Yet still, he held onto his son as if he were the most precious thing in existence. Then a shadow emerged. A man clad in black. His only visible features were his glowing blue eyes, radiating like lanterns in the darkness. The stranger took Fry from Abraham's grasp. Abraham smiled weakly at him. Take care of him. His voice was barely a whisper. Cracks spread across his face. Even as his body crumbled, his eyes remained locked onto his son. The cloaked man muttered something, but Ada couldn't make out the words. And yet, she understood nothing anymore. She had come looking for answers. Instead, she had only found more questions. Because that mysterious figure who had just taken Fry was the same man who had visited her office a month ago. The same man who had shown her things she never should have seen. What is happening? What happened to my father? What kind of enemy could have done this to him? Abraham Starlight was far stronger than the legends claimed. He had annihilated Dragoth, an SS Plus ranked monster, without suffering a single wound. So what kind of force had he faced to leave him in such a state? Ada couldn't even begin to imagine. And then the cloaked man vanished with Fry. The story the world knew played out. Abraham's allies arrived, surrounding him. All they found was Dragoth's corpse, and Abraham on the verge of death. They all believed he had barely survived his battle, suffering fatal wounds in the process. That was what everyone assumed. And then, Abraham Starlight died. The last word he spoke was his son's name. And so, one of Starlight's greatest warriors fell. His sword vanished, never to be seen again. Ada and Rem watched in silence. What happened? I don't know. Ada clenched her fists. Then why show me this past at all? Ada had reached a dead end. What she saw before her was beyond her comprehension. Rem remained as calm as ever. I don't know what happened to Abraham, but he certainly didn't die a natural death. Whether it was the battle against Dragoth or what followed, Abraham was deliberately left alone. The death of Abraham Starlight raised countless questions, one way or another. Among those who had glimpsed even a fragment of the truth, there was that person. Rem gestured toward a figure watching from a distance, a complicated expression on his face. It was Drogo Moonlight. After leaving Abraham to fight the enemy's strongest warrior alone and witnessing the man who had been a thorn in his side for years perish, Drogo was left with conflicting emotions. The man who had overshadowed him for so long was gone, yet he felt no sense of liberation. Instead, he realized those chains would now bind him forever. That man was dead. And with him, every chance Drogo had of becoming the strongest had vanished. Drogo wasn't responsible for what happened. He wasn't the one who conspired against Abraham. Yet a man of his standing knew. He knew something was wrong, the way Abraham had been isolated like that, but he chose to remain a spectator. But my father didn't die because of Dragoth. Ada's voice wavered. Rem nodded. That's true. Whatever killed Abraham, it wasn't human. But that didn't change the fact that many wanted him dead that night. That night, everything changed, especially within Drogo Moonlight. Despair, his dream had been completely shattered. Regret, for standing by and doing nothing. Frustration, an unbearable weight on his chest. And so, Drogo took it out on those around him. Little by little, he began to change. And when his heart weakened, he became the perfect prey for creatures that thrived on such emotions. Impossible! Ada muttered in disbelief as Rem revealed the aftermath of the war. She saw it all with horrifying clarity, the tyrant Drogo shifting into something else. How many lives had he taken simply because someone annoyed him? All in a futile attempt to fill the void inside him. A void that could never be filled. Ada couldn't accept it. He was one of the strongest people ever. There's no way he fell like this, not for such a reason. Rem nodded. You're right. He wouldn't fall that easily. Suddenly, the librarian raised her hand, releasing a brilliant blue light. The glow engulfed the memory entirely, shaping an image of something that had remained unseen until now. Ada's breath caught in her throat. A strange, dark entity. A woman with an unnaturally pale face and eyes sealed shut by eerie threads. She was massive, her long black hair flowing like ink in the void. That entity had bound Drogo Moonlight with dozens of sinister threads. What is that? A demon. Rem's expression darkened. A vile demon that feeds on negative emotions. This kind of demon was known as Spay. Not classified among the higher demons due to their weakness, yet they were dangerously insidious, possessing those with fragile wills with disturbing ease. And that was the catalyst that fueled the corruption within Drogo Moonlight. Violence, lust, none of it made sense anymore. That was all Ada could think. Did a demon like that control the Lord, without anyone realizing it? Rem gave a faint, weary smile. Of course, that's impossible. She pointed to someone who had been watching everything unfold from the very beginning. Ada recognized him instantly. Baylor Moonlight, the younger brother, the current lord of the Moonlight family. He had seen it all. He had known something was twisting his brother's mind. Yet he did nothing. No, he did worse than nothing. He ensured that no one else noticed. He skillfully concealed everything and let Drogo spiral further into madness. Why didn't he stop it? Ada's voice was tight with anger. Rem only shook her head. Sometimes, humans become far worse than demons. From abuse to senseless massacre. Day after day it escalated, until Drogo's number of children grew beyond measure. The scene shifted again, displaying a particular person. Years passed, one after another, until they reached a certain event. A girl, 18 years old, sat in the heart of a garden, surrounded by dozens of children who gazed at her with eyes full of admiration. Rose Moonlight. Ada recognized her instantly. She was from her generation, after all. You're well informed, Ada Starlight. Ada nodded. I saw her often at family gatherings. She was the Lord's daughter. But if I remember correctly, she died. Rem confirmed her words. A girl with white hair and striking blue eyes. Delicate, breathtakingly beautiful. The Moonlight family's precious jewel. Among the children closest to her, one clung tightly to her. Saris Moonlight. She had been just a child back then. Every child in that garden, both boys and girls, were siblings, sharing the same father, Drogo Moonlight, but their mothers were vastly different. Yet among them, only Saris and Rose shared the same mother, sisters by blood. That was why Rose had been Saris's closest person, especially after their mother passed away under mysterious circumstances. Ada and Rem watched the heartwarming scene before them. Rose Moonlight, that girl was the living proof of Drogo Moonlight's most heinous crimes. At this exact point, Drogo had begun losing the last remnants of reason. transforming into the mad lord people came to fear, and committing one of the most horrific atrocities ever buried within the family. The scene kept shifting, revealing the full, unfiltered truth. Chapter 112. Secrets of Moonlight 3. The past reveals much details that many choose to forget. Sometimes, those forgotten details are so repulsive that you'd wish to erase them from your memory every time they resurface. A person can change overnight, and sometimes, the desires lurking within a man's heart are utterly destructive. Before Ada and Rem, that little girl played all day long. She was so full of life that her smile never left her face, not even for a moment. Is this really Sarah's Moonlight? It was as if they were two completely different people. One was an ice sculpture, devoid of almost all emotion. The other was a radiant child, so lively that her joy gradually infected those around her. That's because Rose was there. With her older sister by her side, Sarah lived her happiest days. Rose played the role of both mother and sister perfectly. Seeing how close the two sisters were, Ada felt a hollow ache inside her chest. She couldn't help but compare them to herself and Fry. Unfortunately, because of her brother's difficult personality in the past, she had never been able to build such a bond with him. Even though it wasn't her fault, she still felt a hint of guilt toward Fry. Even if he had once been the scum of the earth, he had changed drastically. Maybe, if she had stayed by his side back then, she could have brought about that change much sooner. But there was no use in regretting the past. What mattered was the present and the future, and Ada Starlight knew that all too well. Rem, ever observant of emotions and auras, took special notice of Ada's fluctuating feelings. She didn't interrupt her. She simply continued studying the current lord of the Starlight family. After all, this was her hobby. Fortunately, Ada's moment of reflection didn't last long, allowing Rem to continue unveiling the past smoothly. Rose Moonlight, beyond her kind nature and beauty, which captivated many, she also possessed one of the greatest talents in the family, right alongside Saris. Her progress in training was slow because she spent much of her time caring for her younger siblings, whether it was Saris, her blood sister, or the many others who shared only her father. Despite her limited training, she always managed to keep up, and sometimes even surpassed those who had dedicated their lives to honing their skills. She was, after all, the daughter of the greatest wave controller in the Empire. She was incredibly perceptive, which was why she had some idea of what was happening behind the scenes within the family. And that was precisely why she clung so desperately to her siblings. She wanted to protect them from what was coming. But she never realized the catastrophe would come from the family's leader himself. The scene shifted, revealing Drogo Moonlight, trembling violently at his desk. He was alone, the demon's threads tightening ever so cruelly around his throat. Like a madman, he twitched and convulsed, muttering to himself,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
He kept apologizing in a strange, unsettling manner, his voice hollow. At times, he swung his arms wildly, as if trying to strike something unseen, while screaming, "Get away!" Whatever that man had witnessed, Drogo had long since reached the point of no return. Ada's gaze was drawn to several black flowers scattered across his desk and in various spots throughout the room. She took note of them, but her focus remained fixed on the broken man before her. Everything was spiraling in the wrong direction. And then came the day, a day when one of Drogo's sons visited his office. A mere boy, barely 7 years old at most. Just a child, eager to show his father his latest accomplishment. "Father, look!" The boy brought his hands together, shaping water into the form of a delicate flower. Then, ever so slowly, the water froze, forming a breathtaking sculpture, one that required a certain level of aura control. Drogo watched with empty eyes, dark circles etched beneath them. He looked terrifying. Yet the boy wasn't scared, not in the slightest. After all, this was his father. Slowly, Drogo rose from his chair and walked toward the boy, wrapping him in a gentle embrace. He didn't even know his son's name. There were too many of them, so many that he never bothered to remember. He patted the boy's hair softly, and just like that, the child smiled, because he had gotten what he came for. But his father never let go. Leaning close, he whispered into the boy's ear.
I'm sorry.
In Drogo's eyes, he no longer saw a child. All he saw was something cloaked in darkness, feeding his hallucinations. It happened in an instant. His hand plunged through the boy's chest, emerging from his back, completely drenched in crimson. The child gasped, a warm breath escaping his lips, followed by a mouthful of blood that gradually grew colder. His eyes met his father's. His expression filled with agony his young mind couldn't comprehend. He reached out, trying to say something, but life abandoned him too soon. The moment it did, his small body froze solid. Then, it shattered into mere fragments of ice. Drogo knelt there for a while, muttering incomprehensible words before rising. His expression unreadable. Like a drunkard, he staggered through the corridors of the castle. The castle of Lady Semiramis was akin to a small city, and this section belonged solely to Drogo and his family. No one else was there. With every step, Ada noticed more of those black flowers appearing. The sight disturbed her more and more, but she couldn't bring herself to say anything. Not when she was witnessing this. One after another, the once pure moonlight estate became stained with blood. Ada's voice trembled. This is madness. Children, adults. Drogo slaughtered them one by one, tearing them apart. Each time he finished with one, he turned them into an ice statue, only for their frozen bodies to evaporate moments later, reduced to nothing but tiny shards of ice. Drogo muttered words, unintelligible, foreign, a language no one had ever heard before, but its sound alone was horrifying. And strangely, he only killed the boys. He never touched the girls. His sons were so absurdly numerous that it was almost laughable. But still, he continued to kill them. And in response, the screams rose. A symphony of terror. Screams that should have been heard not just inside the castle, but across all of Winterfell. Yet, for some reason, no matter how much the children cried for help, no one came. They were utterly alone in that part of the castle. Many of Drogo's sons tried to fight back. But who could stand against an SS+ ranked monster? Some tried to run instead. But barriers of ice, harder than steel, blocked every path. The sheer strength of that ice was S-ranked and beyond. There was no breaking through. They had no choice but to accept reality. They were trapped with a monster. Ada and Rem watched in silence, until Ada finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why didn't you do anything? Excuse me? Rem blinked, confused by how faint Ada's voice was. And then Ada snapped. Why didn't you do anything? Aren't you the very tool left behind by the institution itself? Why did you just sit there, watching with your hands tied? For the first time, a bitter expression appeared on Rem's face. Do you think I'm watching out of my own free will? Ha! Rem shook her head, clenching her fists tightly. My power, my abilities, they exist only within this library. I can't interfere with the outside world. I can't leave. All I could ever do was watch. There was a raw vulnerability in her voice as she continued. I'm loyal to my lady. She left me here for a reason. She left me with a prophecy in my hands. A prophecy of the promised day. Year after year, decades passed, and I remained here, waiting. Waiting for 300 damned years. Ada stood silent, watching as Rem trembled with emotion. Don't talk to me about being powerless, because no one knows that feeling better than I do. The feeling of watching everything crumble, knowing you can't do a damn thing to stop it. Suddenly, a distant sound caught their attention. Rem's words had made them forget, even for a moment, that they were still inside a memory. The two moved toward the source, only to find a young girl standing protectively in front of a group of boys. It was Rose. Rose Moonlight stood bravely before the monster looming over her. From where they stood, Ada and Rem could see the subtle tremor in her body. She was terrified, and yet, she stood her ground, pleading with him to stop. It all happened so fast that she barely had time to process it. Drogo was nothing more than a vessel for twisted thoughts now. Any attempt to reach him was futile. Rose realized this. She tried to stop him by force. But what could a mere C-class awakened like her possibly do against him? With a single wave of his hand, he sent her flying. Rose hit the ground hard, pain rippling through her body from that single, effortless blow. And before her eyes, the children who had cowered behind her were slaughtered, cut down one after another, their screams fading into the cold air. She could do nothing but choke back her tears and run. She stumbled into a familiar room, a cozy space with 2 beds. She rushed to a wardrobe, yanking it open. Inside, a young girl sat curled up, hugging her knees in fear. "Sister," a trembling voice called out to her, and Rose pulled Cerys into a desperate embrace. "It's okay. I'm here." She clung to Cerys, holding her tightly as the sounds of slaughter echoed from outside. Hours passed, though it felt like an eternity. Eventually, the screams ceased, leaving only an eerie silence in their wake. That night, Drogo murdered every boy who had once called him father. The blood ran so thick that the once pure ice took on a new crimson hue. After committing such an atrocity, Drogo locked himself away in his study. No one saw his face for days, but the barriers that had sealed them inside remained intact. And so, they were forced to stay, trapped with the monster that had once been their lord, dreading the moment his door would open again. It was too much for the young girls like Rose to bear, let alone those as small as Cerys. Ada and Rem watched it all unfold. At this point, neither of them spoke. Their expressions said more than words ever could, especially with the sound of muffled sobs surrounding them. Throughout it all, Rose never left Cerys' side. She stayed with her, forced to lie to her. "Everything is going to be all right." That was what she told her over and over again. What happened outside? What were those screams? That was the question Cerys had asked. There were some bad people outside. We have to hide until they're dealt with. There was no worse feeling than this, to lie, to reassure someone that everything was fine when you knew the truth was anything but. Especially when Cerys asked, "Why isn't Father stopping them? Isn't he the strongest?" Rose had no answer. Chapter 113. Secrets of Moonlight. 4. Then, one day, a rift suddenly tore open in the frozen barrier that had trapped them. From it, a single man stepped through. The moment he entered, the portal closed behind him. He walked through the blood-stained corridors, his eyes sweeping over the corpses littering the floor, the women who looked at him with desperate, shining eyes. They saw hope. They ran to him, but he passed them all without a second glance, continuing forward until he reached the door that housed the beast. Without hesitation, he pushed it open. Baylor Moonlight entered his brother's study. He found the place utterly destroyed. Drogo sat in the corner, his body trembling, his sobs filling the air. Tears had long dried, replaced by streaks of blood running down his face. He had clawed at himself so relentlessly that his features were now grotesquely disfigured. This was the state of the once mighty lord of House Moonlight. "You look well, brother." Drogo lifted his blood-stained eyes to meet his brother's gaze.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
"I know, Drogo. I know." Baylor stepped further into the ruined room, reaching into the bag he carried. "Kill me. Please, kill me." The bloody tears intensified as Drogo pleaded for death. "I can't do that. Not yet." Baylor pulled out several black flowers, placing them in different corners of the room, a strange smile curving his lips. "Look, I brought you a gift." For some reason, the moment Drogo laid eyes on those flowers, his face twisted in agony. Ada's expression darkened as she recognized them. "What are those?" she asked instinctively. Rem answered, "Those flowers, they don't grow on this planet." The moment they were placed, they released an almost invisible dust into the air, dust that Drogo unknowingly inhaled. "I didn't understand their nature at first, but those flowers are like a powerful intoxicant, capable of twisting the mind." if certain conditions are met. Conditions that Drogo had already fulfilled. The pieces finally started falling into place for Ada. Then, everything that happened until now? Rem nodded. It was because of him. Baylor Moonlight, the current lord of House Moonlight. Baylor left the study, leaving Drogo behind. On his way out, he encountered Rose Moonlight and several other women. Please, help us. The Lord has lost his mind. He slaughtered everyone. Please. With a sympathetic expression, Baylor reassured them. I know. I'll do everything I can to help. Unfortunately, I can't defeat my brother. But I'll return with reinforcements. I promise. Empty words. False promises. Then he left, as if he had never been there to begin with. Help never came, and the girls were left alone once again. Rose continued to hide Cerys away in their room. Cerys didn't know what was happening beyond those walls. She was obedient. If her sister told her to stay put forever, she would. And so, she had no choice but to trust Rose. Until one day, that door opened again. Drogo stepped out, and this time he said nothing. Not a single word, not even a whisper. No one knew what kind of twisted thoughts lurked inside his mind. The moment he emerged, he seized one of the older girls and dragged her into his study. Her resistance was futile. All anyone could do was watch from afar. The moment he shut the door behind him, only one thing could be heard: screams. For an entire hour, that was all that echoed through the halls. Then the door would open, and a girl, utterly broken, would stumble out. She wouldn't say a word. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't scream. But it wasn't difficult to guess what had happened to her inside that room. First, he violated the women who were his wives. Then the older girls, his daughters. Now he no longer cared. There was no distinction anymore. After it happened again and again, everyone knew what Drogo was doing behind those doors. Ada and Rem in particular knew, because they saw everything. He violated them. He tortured them, in the most brutal and humiliating ways imaginable. They became nothing more than broken dolls. Many couldn't endure it. And who could? Who could live with such unbearable humiliation? The sight of young girls hanging from the branches of trees had become disturbingly familiar. One after another, many of them took their own lives, unable to endure it any longer. Especially his daughters. For them it was hell itself. And within that hell, Rose remained hidden with Cerys. She no longer dared to leave their room. How could she, with what was happening outside? The only thing she could do was hide the younger children, those the same age as her sister or even younger. They should never have to witness such horrors. She would check on them from time to time, then return to Cerys. Meanwhile, Drogo indulged in his depravity daily, until one day he found no suitable victim. Too many bodies now hung from the trees. But he knew, more were still in hiding. That's enough. I don't want to see any more. Ada had reached her limit. Her mind was on the brink. So what about those who had suffered it firsthand? But Rem only shook her head. Unfortunately, we have to see this through. Drogo stepped out of his room. One step after another, countless dark threads wrapped around him, guiding him toward a certain place. His footsteps were slow, but for those still alive they were a nightmare. And his target became clear. Rose, who had been holding her sister close, felt it. She felt him coming. Her body trembled, but she forced herself to move, rushing to tuck Cerys into the wardrobe. Sister, you're shaking. Rose knew what awaited her, but she swallowed the emotions threatening to spill over, forcing a smile for her sister. Cerys, no matter what happens, no matter what you hear, don't come out, okay? Sister. The footsteps were growing louder. Tears began to fall despite herself. Hide well. Close your eyes. Don't come out until I return. All right? Her voice trembled. Her body trembled. She was barely holding it together. Cerys could feel it. I love you, more than anything in this world. Rose shut the wardrobe, and the door creaked open. Drogo stepped inside. Through the narrow gaps in the wardrobe, Saris saw everything. She saw how Rose fought. She saw how that monster pinned her down and ravaged her, her screams filling the room. And then, she saw how he dragged her outside, to continue his torment elsewhere. A child's mind wasn't meant to comprehend such horrors. At first, Saris couldn't grasp what she had seen. Her father, her sister being hurt by her father. The bad people Rose had warned her about had been him all along. He had done something strange to her, something Saris didn't understand. But she knew. She knew her sister had suffered. She curled up inside the wardrobe, trembling. She waited and waited, but Rose never came back. In the end, Saris found the courage to break her sister's command. She pushed the wardrobe open and stepped out. She walked through a field of corpses, searching. Sister! Her small voice barely carried through the night. She entered a certain garden. A garden where women hung from the trees. She walked between them, clutching her thin dress. Sister! One by one, she passed them. The faces of those she had seen every day. People she had known. People who had once smiled, laughed, and spoken to her. People she had believed would always be there. She recognized them all. And because of that, her tears refused to stop. In the end, Saris reached a tree, larger than the others, and on one of its highest branches hung a single body, just one. Yet that single body was the one that shattered her the most. She couldn't even reach it. The rope was tied too high, but she didn't need to. She already knew. Her sister had once told her, "I love you more than anything in this world. I'll come back to you." But now, Saris collapsed. There, beneath that cursed tree, she wept harder than ever before. The girl hanging from that tree was the one Saris cherished most in this world. She was Rose. That night, something inside Saris shattered beyond repair. Chapter 114, Return to the Present. Time passed swiftly, and history etched itself once more, step by step. A lone girl stood in the midst of it all, one who had lost all her light overnight. The bright smile that once illuminated her face had vanished entirely. All that remained was a hollow expression, her features worn down by tears that had long since dried. "You told me you would come back. You said I was the most important thing in your life." But she never returned. Instead, she left this world by her own will. Leaning against the tree that had held her sister's lifeless body, she sat there, unmoving, in a field where the stench of death clung to the air, thick and suffocating. A place no child should ever be forced to endure. All that remained were children. Children too young to comprehend what had happened. Some still believing it was just a nightmare. A terrifying one, yes, but real nonetheless. And in this nightmare, lurking demons found their perfect prey, the ones who had lost their light entirely. But humans can be far worse than demons. All it took were a few carefully chosen words, spoken at the right place at the right time. Do you want revenge on the one who did this to your beloved sister? The monster responsible for all of this was none other than your own father, Lord Drogo Moonlight. One by one, Baelor Moonlight sowed his venomous seeds in the minds of the children who remained. Among them was a fragile girl, burdened with a weight no child should ever bear. Those who survived that place, from the very moment they did, their fates were sealed. Baelor Moonlight understood this better than anyone. After all, he was the one who had crafted this very environment. He was the architect of those icy barriers, the one who isolated Lord Drogo Moonlight's estate from the outside world. It had never been Drogo. It was always him. Without Baelor, things would never have spiraled this far. But what was done, was done. And now, here they were. Baelor had set the stage. All that remained was the final act of this wretched play. And so, with precise calculation, he drew that small, fragile girl into his web. A girl who knew nothing of the world. A girl who had lost everything. Saris. He handed her an object. And then she went. She walked straight toward the one she saw as the source of all her nightmares. The beast who had long since lost his mind. Saras entered the room where Drogo awaited. By then, he was unrecognizable. His face, mutilated beyond belief. His body, twisted into a grotesque monstrosity. A mass of rotting flesh with distorted eyes staring in all directions. Yet even as Saras approached step by step, Drogo did not move. He only watched. Somewhere deep within that monster, some faint, dying ember of reason kept him from striking down his youngest daughter on sight. And then, Saras reached out. Her small hand clutched a strange, golden cube. The moment she touched him with it, a blinding light erupted, a searing radiance that swallowed everything in sight, like divine flames purging all sin. Drogo burned within that holy inferno. Thick, black smoke rose from his body, twisting violently as if purging the world's very evils. He was completely immobilized, frozen in place. And in that moment, he stood no chance. A colossal spear of ice tore through his chest, ripping open a gaping hole that no mortal could ever hope to survive. Yet even then, Drogo made no sound. He merely closed his eyes. As if in relief, he had endured his own personal hell. And now it was over. Baelor Moonlight had slain Drogo. But not before making him suffer every last torment imaginable. And in the end, he painted himself as the hero who had ended the nightmare. Ada watched the scene unfold. Her expression was void of emotion. This is too much to take in. Just witnessing it was enough to break the mind of any sane person, let alone living through such horrors firsthand. Beside her, Rem shook her head, her face twisted with nothing but disgust toward that man. Drogo had once looked up to Abraham, the one who had stood above him. Only one man, yet he failed to realize that he too had once been looked up to, especially by someone who had lived in his shadow since childhood. Someone who had been doomed from birth to remain in the dark, no matter what he did. Someone who had never been able to shatter the ice of his older brother. The most fragile doll of them all had never been Drogo. It had always been Baelor, a man consumed by his pursuit of power, power that remained just beyond his grasp. A desperate soul like that would cling to the first lifeline thrown his way. And he did. Drogo's death sent shockwaves through the Empire. Even Emperor Mikar Valyrian himself came, unwilling to believe the claims of treason. But the truth of what had occurred within those walls was buried. The world was told that Drogo had massacred his own sons and most of his daughters after losing control of the power that had consumed him. A tale difficult to swallow. Yet the Church's revelation of the demonic aura lingering in Drogo's corpse cemented the claim, leaving no room for doubt. The only survivors were children, most of whom had been shattered beyond repair, their minds fractured to the point where truth and delusion blurred into one. And those who retained even a sliver of clarity were silenced by Baelor's hand. Only the main family knew the truth of what had transpired behind those sealed doors. Some whispers of reality slipped through the cracks. They became nothing more than rumors, tales told by strangers. And so, one of the Empire's greatest pillars fell. And in its place, a new lord rose, one who seized his throne through the most vile and ruthless means imaginable. Are you sure you want to show me all this? I'm an outsider to your family. Rem merely shook her head. Given what you're planning, Lord Starlight, you're about to bring real change to this house. A change that must happen, if you truly intend to preserve the legacy left behind by Lady Semiramis. That's why I won't stop you. Though, if you intend to destroy that legacy, I will not stand idly by. Ada let out a weary sigh. She glanced down at her hands, both marked with symbols of blood, a weight far heavier than she could bear. To think that the one man who always claimed to be neutral was the very cause of all this. Appearances have always been the greatest lie of all. Yeah. Baelor Moonlight betrayed himself, his people, his own family. Even now, I can't fully grasp what I've seen and heard. But what I don't understand is—" She hesitated. The image of her brother resurfaced in her mind. The brother whose fate she had foreseen. A fate that predicted his death. What does Fry have to do with any of this? Rem remained silent for a moment. And then, the scene shifted, revealing something entirely different. Fry Starlight. You could say he was just another unlucky soul. One who found himself caught in this filth and chaos. Rem revealed a series of visions to Ada. Glimpses of pivotal moments where another's fate had been sealed completely. All of it unfolded within a library, now isolated from the outside world by a massive, impenetrable gate. And standing before that gate was a lone figure, with sleek blue hair, pale skin, and an aura of sheer dread. It was Baylor Moonlight. Fry Starlight's POV. Huff, huff. I gasped for air. My body sprawled across the ground. I wouldn't be lying if I said I had completely wrecked myself just now. It felt like forcing a tiny faucet to pour out an entire ocean in an instant. Are you okay? Carmen's voice reached me. She sat beside me, still struggling to process what had just happened. With a weak smile, I forced my lips to move. Who was it again? That you called half a man? She blinked in surprise before a muffled chuckle escaped her lips. Damn. What's your secret? Are you even human? Groaning, I pushed myself off the ground with great effort. I think I am. Took me a moment to steady my breathing before I spoke again. As for my secret, I should be asking you a question first. Will you swear your allegiance to me? Carmen fell silent. Lowering her gaze, she stared at both hands, recalling the moment that barrier, the one that had held her back for so long, finally began to crack. If she repeated the process with me, breaking through from S+ to SS would only be a matter of time. The young man before her was the son of Lord Abraham Starlight, the very person who had shaped her into who she was today. The same man she had loved. In her own way. The answer was obvious. She nodded. A wide grin spread across my face. So, you're accepting the offer of the half a man standing before you? Ignoring my sarcastic remark, Carmen spoke with unwavering resolve. From this day forward, I swear my allegiance as your knight. If your life is at risk, I will lay down my own. Your secrets will die with me. When you live, I shall live. When you die, I shall die. Wait. Scratch that last part. No need to jinx us. Carmen smirked, her tone playful. This level of commitment is necessary to build trust. Or, would you prefer if I offered my body instead? Carmen, her body. A violent shiver ran down my spine as I frantically waved my hands. I'll have to decline that tempting offer, especially since you're stronger than me. Maybe I'll consider it once I surpass you. Oh? Surpass me? With an A-rank talent. She scoffed, only to fall silent. The memory of that terrifying aura flashed through her mind, and for a brief moment, her thoughts came to a halt. An A-rank talent meant my stats should have been permanently capped at that level. Yet I had far exceeded it. I shook my head slowly. You've sworn your loyalty as my knight. As your new lord, I swear in turn to treat you properly and never force you into anything against your will. I paused before continuing. Now, here's what you need to know. I raised a single finger. First, my talent isn't A-rank. Carmen's eyes widened, but she didn't interrupt. You don't need to know my true limit or why everyone else is unaware of it. Second, the aura you felt, and how I survived inside Nightmare Lands for a whole year. Here, I had to weave truth and lies together into something believable. I couldn't reveal everything to her, but I managed to share some scattered truths. First, the source of my power, I attributed it to the Shadow Sect. I gave her a brief explanation without diving into details like the statues and other hidden aspects. However, I did tell her about the 10,000 steps of shadow technique. To reinforce my claim, I revealed my sword Balerion, the Black Dread. Her eyes widened as realization struck. She finally understood how I had been able to wound her that day. It looks like, Carmen muttered absent-mindedly. Looks like what? Your sword. It resembles Abraham's. It was well known that Abraham once wielded Dark Sister, the blade meant for the sword god Avalon during the Empire early days. Both Balerion and Dark Sister were black swords, so I understood the comparison. Sword of. I brushed it off, unwilling to discuss the secrets of the 7 legendary swords any further. Now, let's focus on what you need to do, Carmen. The first thing I addressed was the curse placed on me and the fact that I was being targeted. Surprisingly, she didn't seem shocked. Instead, she looked as if she already knew. Do you already know about this? Carmen nodded, confirming my suspicions. How? She hesitated before answering. I learned about it from Ada. Ada, since you've brought her up, that leads to the next matter. I want you to continue supporting her. That's one thing. I stepped closer, my tone serious. But on the other hand, I need you to tell me, what exactly is my sister planning? Ada knew too much. I had no doubt she was preparing for something. I needed to grasp the situation now to strategize my next move effectively. But I didn't get the answer I wanted. Sorry, Fry, Carmen said firmly. Your sister placed a strong restriction on me. No matter how loyal I am to you now, I physically can't speak about what she's planning. That's how serious she is about this. I brought a hand to my chin, deep in thought. Ada had done something drastic enough to force Carmen into silence? This was becoming more troublesome by the second. Sensing my frustration, Carmen quickly reassured me. Fry, your sister is completely on your side. She would never do anything to harm you, be certain of that. The best thing you can do right now is ask her directly. I nodded. I suppose you're right. I needed to talk to my sister. But the real question was, where is Ada? At that moment, neither Carmen, despite her strength, nor I realized that someone had slipped through her barriers. A hidden figure lurked in the shadows, silently watching everything unfold. Chapter 115. A Letter to My Father. Fry Starlight's POV. A day had passed since I officially made Carmen my subordinate. Everything remained the same, no surprises, nothing out of the ordinary. My fellow temple trainees were all immersed in their own training, each striving to grow stronger. Frost was as brutal as ever, but I could no longer read any emotion from him. He was like an executioner, arriving to beat me senseless before leaving without a word. I wanted to let loose, to push myself into a real fight against him, but I knew my chances were slim. Still, this kind of calm never sat well with me. It always concealed raging storms beneath the surface. And that led me to the one thing that had been weighing on my mind. Ada hadn't shown up for an entire day. I knew she was capable. She could handle herself. But her recent actions, coupled with the fact that she was clearly planning something, made me uneasy, especially since she was doing it for me. If Ada didn't return soon, I would have to escalate things against the Moonlights. But for now, I decided to wait. I had my own battles to fight. My new training pushed my body to its limits. Forcing out massive amounts of aura beyond my capacity to support Carmen had left devastating consequences. My aura channels had been completely wrecked. Each time, I focused entirely on recovery, using potions and deep meditation. The moment I reached a certain level of healing, I would repeat the process, shattering my channels all over again. Channeling aura through broken pathways was like forcing molten lava through my veins. The pain was unlike anything I had experienced since the nightmare days. No ordinary human body could withstand this level of training. But I wasn't ordinary. That much became clearer each time. And so, I continued breaking myself down, rebuilding stronger, and repeating the cycle again. Meanwhile, Carmen was inching closer to SS rank. She had already begun touching its threshold. As for me, I was accelerating toward rank C. A rank that would open countless new possibilities. After another grueling session with Carmen, I collapsed onto the ground, summoning Balerion into my hands. My fingers traced the cold, unyielding metal of the black blade. It was sharper than ever, thirsting for blood. Not much longer, my friend. Soon, I'll be able to unleash your true form. Once I reached rank C, I would finally be able to manifest Balerian's full power, though I wouldn't be able to sustain it for long. Still, an extra trump card was always welcome. Days passed, and on the third day, Ada returned. She looked exhausted, physically and mentally drained. She wasn't injured, but I could tell she had been carrying a heavy burden. I tried asking her what she had been doing, what she was planning, but all she said was, "It's fine. I know." She refused to say anything more, and I couldn't force her. Her words lingered in my mind, even during training. What did she mean by "I know"? Had she uncovered one of the Moonlight family's secrets? I didn't like that thought. If she had, it meant she would become a target for the Cursecaster as well. Given my current position, I needed every bit of help I could get, but I didn't want her dragged into this. I didn't want to owe her more than I already did, and I certainly didn't want her getting hurt. For now, I left Carmen with her until the time was right. Time moved strangely. I had become the busiest person in the world. Lately, I hadn't even been sleeping. Training, 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 followed by endless thoughts of what was coming next. My interactions were limited to Danzo and Ghost, with the occasional exchange of words with Selena. And my sister. A week later, Ada stopped leaving her room. Her complexion had paled, almost as if she were suffering from anemia. Anyone with a brain could tell something was wrong. But no matter what I did or how hard I tried, she wouldn't tell me anything. She was too sharp. She had already figured out that I had recruited Carmen. She didn't object, but she had grown secretive around Carmen as well. Between Ada's silence, my relentless training, my search for a way to deal with the Cursecaster, and whatever unseen forces were working against me, I was reaching my limits. No, I had surpassed them long ago. Wandering through the cold fortress, I wandered through the areas of this cold, lifeless fortress where I was allowed to tread. Despite the contempt directed at me from every corner, it was still preferable to dying in training. Aimless walks through these halls had become a habit, an escape if only for a moment. During these strolls, I let my mind drift back to my past life, to my family and the 25 years I had spent with them. I feared the day I might start forgetting them, so I revisited those memories often, ensuring my purpose remained clear and reminding myself of what I had to do. Losing myself in these recollections made me oblivious to my surroundings. That's why I didn't notice her until I nearly collided with her. You! The same little girl from before. She stood before me, gazing up with those striking violet eyes. I knelt to meet her at eye level. "Hey, I've been looking for you." I ruffled her hair gently. She was the only one in this wretched family who hadn't shunned me. "Where have you been hiding? MMM." Without warning, she lunged at me, wrapping her tiny arms around me in a quick embrace. I hadn't expected it, but I didn't mind. Taking the chance, I lifted her into my arms. With a faint smile, I resumed my walk, carrying her along. "This is fine, right?" She nodded enthusiastically. As I wandered through the halls, I tried to get her to talk, but she wasn't much of a conversationalist. "Your name is Azura, right?" She nodded in response. If she didn't want to answer, she simply remained silent. Her small blue dress emitted a faint chill, mirroring the quiet mystery surrounding her. I knew there was something peculiar about this girl, yet I was instinctively drawn to her. Azura sounds a bit too grand. I'll just call you Blue instead. Azura felt more fitting for a continent or an ancient lineage, not for a delicate girl like her. She didn't protest, so from now on, she would be Blue. There was something strangely soothing about her, almost as if she had a calming presence. Then, a chilling thought crossed my mind. I was drawn to her, and in turn, she always came running to me, ignoring everyone else. Could there be some kind of connection between us? Wait, I suddenly remembered something. The original Fry was rather indulgent in his vices. The story had already strayed from the original path I had written, so at this point, anything was possible. Could he have fathered a child? The thought alone sent a shiver down my spine. Without hesitation, I tightened my grip on Azura and looked her straight in the eyes. "Blue, tell me, Who is your father? She said nothing. Don't look at me like that. Just say something. I gave her a light shake, making her head bob comically. I don't know. She finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. She doesn't know? She doesn't even know who her father is? What about your mother? I don't know. She was unaware of both her parents' identities. That didn't confirm anything, but it didn't put my mind at ease either. She looked about 4 years old, and I was only 18. Did Fry really do something like that at 13?
No.
I highly doubted it. I was still lost in my thoughts when Blue suddenly pointed at something. Is that your father? Following her gaze, I found myself staring at a grand portrait of Abraham Starlight, the father of this body. I suppose so. Your father is famous. All at once, Blue became more talkative, but my focus remained on the painting. The girl glanced between us before asking again. What was he like? Your father. My father. I murmured softly. My father. Lifting Blue once more, I cast one last look at the portrait before me. My father wasn't famous or renowned. Blue listened intently. He wasn't a great warrior, nor a legendary figure. He was just my father. A man who dedicated his life to his children. No matter how harsh life became, he was always there, standing behind me. He was my support, a huge part of who I am today. That's why. He was the greatest man I've ever known. And that's why I have to return to my world. That man gave everything for me. And what have I done in return? Not even a fraction of what he deserved. I knew he never expected anything back, but I would return, if only to let him see me become the man he always believed I could be. Promise, Dad. My father was the man in my memories, not the one in the painting. Abraham Starlight, I don't know who you are. I never even wrote about you. Maybe I stole your beloved son's body, but at the very least, I rid the world of another piece of trash. You were a hero, yes, but you were never, and never will be, my father. Blue continued staring at me, her gaze unwavering. Realizing I had said some rather odd things, I quickly apologized. Sorry, I must have said something strange, huh? Blue shook her head. You love your father. Yeah, I do. It was a shame this little girl didn't even know hers. Where did she even come from? The library? The library. Wait, Blue, can you take me back to that place? You know, the library. She remained silent for a moment before slipping out of my arms. Then, she grabbed my hand and started leading me through the fortress in a seemingly random direction. Unlike last time, however, I felt lightheaded, almost as if some kind of magic was affecting me. Still, I was just grateful for another chance to enter that library. Just how many secrets could I uncover there? Before long, I found myself standing before a massive door, or rather, beneath it. With a blank expression, I asked, Blue, how exactly am I supposed to get in? I looked up, the entrance was literally in the ceiling. Jump! Jump! Blue nodded. What kind of ridiculous library was this? Oh well, nothing to lose. I held Blue tightly and leaped. The gateway swallowed us both. Moments later, I found myself gazing upon the same breathtaking sight as before. An enormous library sculpted from ice. A masterpiece filled with untold mysteries. Welcome to Lady Semiramis Library. Oh, it's you again, Lord Fry. Just like last time, Rem sat there, unfazed. But this time, Blue remained beside me instead of running toward her. Sorry for intruding. I may have overstepped. Rem shook her head calmly. It's fine. You are Azura's guest, after all. Though lately, the Starlight family has been occupying this place quite a bit. She chuckled softly, but her words caught my attention. The Starlight family. Has someone else been here recently? Yes, the current head of the Starlight family. Your sister, Ada. Ada was here. As I suspected, things were happening behind my back. Can I ask why my sister came here? Silence filled the air. For a moment, I received no response. Then, the blind girl smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, But I can't say. It's part of my agreement with your sister. An agreement? Did she make some kind of contract with this girl? A faint headache crept in as I pondered the implications. I recalled Ada's recent pale complexion and how she had secluded herself. Just what the hell was going on? I felt a small hand grip mine. Blue! She was holding on to me. Rem seemed pleased by the sight and gestured for me to explore as much as I wanted. You may stay here as long as you wish, but once you leave, you may not be able to return. So use your time wisely, Lord Starlight. She chuckled before adding, though, considering how attached Azura is to you, I doubt that'll be a problem. Right? I took her words seriously. I intended to make the most of this opportunity. As I climbed the upper levels with Blue, Rem suddenly stopped me. Oh, Lord Starlight, forgive my impudence, but I advise you to keep an eye on your shadow in the future. I frowned. My shadow? Rem merely smiled and waved at me and Blue. Just moments ago, when I had jumped with Blue, the portal had absorbed us both. But it had rejected something. Or rather, someone. A dark-clad figure crashed onto the floor after being forcibly expelled. Shit, I've been found out. Chapter 116. Random Advice. Fry Starlight's POV. Watch my shadow closely. The first name that came to mind when she said those words was Ghost. Could it be that I've become his target? That doesn't make sense. Something like this happened in the original story, but his target was supposed to be Snow Lionheart. An assassin like Ghost, one born to kill, always identifies the most dangerous individual in his field and marks them as his light. If it's me, then somehow, in his eyes, I've become the most dangerous person around, even more than Snow Lionheart. Was it because I revealed Balerion during my fight with Ferrith? Just what do Ghost's eyes see? Setting aside how much the story has deviated, Ghost's abilities were an absolute nightmare. Like my anti-magic or Snow's hex-elemental talent, Ghost possessed an ability that allowed him to completely erase his presence, as long as he remained absolutely motionless. If he stayed still, and unless his target had a countermeasure, no one, no matter how skilled, would sense his existence. That's what made him so terrifying. A nightmare even for demons in the future. And now, on top of everything else I had to deal with, I had to handle him as well. And who knows how much information he had already gathered on me. This is a disaster. I sighed in frustration. I'll deal with him later. Right now, I need to focus on what's in front of me. The library of Semiramis might hold the answers I'm looking for. Nothing in this world is without flaws. If there's even the slightest loophole in the curse binding my heart, I'll find it. And so, for the next several hours, I immersed myself in book after book. I scoured everything I could find on curses. But cases of surviving the curse of the frozen heart were almost non-existent. There was a way to counter it, but the minimum requirement was to be stronger than the one who cast it. Which didn't apply to me. After all, the one I suspected of casting the curse was light years beyond me in strength. That meant only one fate awaited me. A slow, inevitable death, as the relentless frost devoured my heart, turning me into an ice statue. That was the exact description used in the books. I couldn't break it through conventional means. So, I pulled out my laptop, assessing my current capabilities. Host name: Fry Starlight, Dual Soul. Class: Swordsman. Talent rank: S. Current rank: C. Strength: D+. Speed: C. Agility: C.
Endurance, D+. Aura, SSS.
Magic: Swordsmanship, Level 4. Limit broken. User can now reach Level 7. Innate talents: Swordsmanship,
Aura Manipulation.
Poison resistance. Combat style, 10,000 Steps of Shadow. Skills: Hawk Eyes, A rank. Phantom Steps, A rank. Seduction, D rank. Ascension, S rank. Abilities: Shadow Adaptation 07. Anti-Magic, Level 1. Current achievement points: 2,250. Thanks to completing the train mission and various side quests, I had 2,250 achievement points. If I reached rank C before the deadline, I'd earn an extra 1,000 points, pushing my total to 4,000 at best. But to break the curse, I slowly typed on the virtual keyboard, "Remove the curse of the frozen heart." The system responded immediately. 10,000 achievement points. That was impossible. Achievement points had always been my biggest problem in this life. But wait, this system assigned a specific point cost to anything I requested. Didn't that mean that, as long as I had enough points, I could do practically anything? Lifting a curse, killing a powerful enemy. I paused, staring at the screen. Returning to my world, I let out a laugh at that last thought. That was nothing more than a dream. Back to the problem at hand. I wouldn't be able to gather the required points in time, but maybe I could manipulate the system a little. For instance, extending my deadline beyond a month. Though that wouldn't help much. I highly doubted the one who cast the curse would simply wait for me to meet my deadline. What about the other system functions? Image from the future, useless in this situation. That left me with just one option. System advice. Random advice, 250 achievement points. Direct advice, 500 achievement points. I stared at both options for a moment. Why had the cost of advice increased? Frustrated, I was about to punch the laptop but stopped myself when I remembered that Blue was still beside me. Sighing, I made my decision. Direct advice would give me a clear answer, but at a steep price. One more obstacle on top of the countless others already in my way. Random advice, on the other hand, would be cryptic and difficult to interpret, but it would still point me toward the best course of action. Nothing ever came easy, but this time I decided to take the gamble. 250 achievement points vanished as the system generated my only possible path to breaking the curse. The screen flashed brightly as words formed one by one. "You're in quite the predicament this time. Is this truly the end? Will we witness the complete collapse of your dreams? That would be unfortunate. So, try deciphering the riddle of this advice. You might just find your salvation. When the cold tightens around your heart, you'll find that estrogen levels are naturally high yet within normal limits in the human body. Red blood is the same, flowing through every vein. But allegiance belongs to Tricell. Try your luck and ask the church to pray for your poor soul." The random advice ended, along with the last shred of logic in my mind. I only understood the first part. The rest? Complete nonsense. Blood? The church? This damned system never failed to make me feel like an idiot. Regardless, I had no choice but to start deciphering the riddle piece by piece. For now, I glanced at the books surrounding me. What caught my interest was that they didn't just discuss the curse of the frozen heart. They covered many other curses that piqued my curiosity. Black Flame, the curse of the Sunlight family, was said to slowly burn its victims from the inside. What intrigued me most was how it only affected internal organs while leaving the skin untouched. That meant the victims remained perfectly intact on the outside, just empty shells within. On the other hand, the Iliad curse of the Starlight family was considered the most powerful among all curses. Unlike most, which could only target one person at a time, the Iliad curse could affect multiple individuals simultaneously. However, it came at a heavy toll on the user's body. In terms of sheer agony, no other curse came close. It forced the victim's blood to violently burst from their body, causing excruciating pain before death. I might find a use for this in the future. The potential applications of such a power intrigued me. I made a mental note to look into acquiring one of these curses later. Blue had fallen asleep, likely out of boredom. Meanwhile, I had finished reading most of the books on curses. Yet, I had no intention of leaving just yet. This was a vast library, after all. It didn't contain information on curses alone. I wandered around, picking up any book that caught my interest. Chapter 117, Assassin Creed. At some point, Rem suddenly appeared behind me. "Judging by the books you've chosen so far, are you interested in literature, Lord Fry?" I gave her a slight nod. "Kind of. After all, I was a writer, naturally inclined to reading stories and literary works." "In that case, Allow me to recommend a few good books. I turned to Rem, my expression hinting at confusion. I understood that, as the librarian, she must have extensive knowledge. But wasn't she blind? How could she even read? I didn't ask, though. I knew the librarian before me had her own secrets. Following her recommendations, I unexpectedly found several books that piqued my interest. While I was engrossed in browsing them, Rem gently picked up Blue. Blue didn't stir at all as she was moved. Is she really asleep? Rem stroked Blue's hair with a soft smile. Yes, Lady Azura has reached her limit for today. Among all the words she said, one caught my attention. Lady. Rem gave a slight nod. Lady Azura belongs to this library. She cannot survive outside of it. She already exhausted her strength just bringing you here. She belongs to this place? But she's just a little girl. Yes, she is just a little girl. Rem lifted her head to look at me before turning to leave. No one can see Lady Azura unless she wills it. Not even the current lord of the family himself. Yet she allowed you to see her. Among everyone, she chose you. For some reason, she trusts you. So I will too. She paused, then added in a quiet but firm voice. Fry Starlight, my only request is this. No matter the corruption you witness within these walls, do not let hatred take root in your heart. This family was not always like this. I remained silent. I couldn't give her an answer, and she already knew that. I wasn't the type to easily let go of grudges. But I wasn't reckless enough to bring ruin to an entire family either. Even if I wanted to, I lacked the power to do so. I watched in silence as Rem left, my eyes darkening. I lacked that power, at least for now. After spending an entire night in the library, I finally left, having reached my limit. I had a riddle to solve. There was no need to burden myself with useless information. As I walked through one of the corridors of the ice castle, I suddenly halted, a wry smile forming on my lips. Come out. I know you're here. Silence filled the empty corridor. I had chosen this moment to speak because the area was completely deserted. Perfect for situations like this. Then, as a killing intent spread through the hallway, one of the walls darkened, and from within it, a certain figure stepped out. Ghost Umbra. So you emerged from the wall. I thought you'd remain clinging to my shadow. As always, Ghost's expression was cold. But this time, there was the faintest trace of a smirk. Fry Starlight. My expression hardened. I had no interest in dragging this out. Why did you choose me? As far as I know, I don't meet your expectations. Ghost shook his head. The fact that you're even aware of that is impressive. Fry, you may try to deny it, but I can see it clearly. His assassin's eyes bore into me. That frail body of yours may seem ordinary, but among everyone I know, your shadow looms the largest against the wall. From beneath the feet of a single man, a shadow extended, one that engulfed many others. And it all stemmed from one person, Fry Starlight. Ghost was perceptive enough to recognize that. Darkness spread beneath us, swallowing both me and Ghost. A void where only the two of us existed. So you're dragging me into your domain. You don't want anyone overhearing this conversation. Ghost's voice remained calm. You could have refused if you wanted to. Of course not. I want to settle this too. Silence settled between us. We were standing in the middle of literal darkness, yet we could see each other perfectly. Whether it was because of my hawk eyes or because Ghost was in his own domain, one way or another we both saw clearly. I already know plenty, Fry Starlight. The power hidden within that body of yours, the true talent most remain blind to. For better or worse, you won't be rid of me so easily. For better or worse, huh? So he had seen and heard everything. Even though I hadn't revealed everything to Carmen, this was still information I didn't want leaking out. That was the assassin's creed, the troublesome doctrine of Mist Umbra's son. He always accounted for every possibility from the start. The moment he deemed me a threat, he immediately took measures to deal with me. That was what he meant by, for better or worse. If I ever became a danger to the Empire, he would eliminate me. This information was his leverage. And if the opposite happened, he would have someone he could use as a front. The stronger the person in the spotlight, the larger the shadow they cast behind them. I sighed in annoyance. This was supposed to happen to Snow Lionheart, not me. I couldn't let Ghost walk away with this kind of knowledge. But what now? Should I fight him here? The man in front of me wasn't easy prey. In the original timeline, Snow emerged as the victor of the Victoriad. Yes, but his final opponent was none other than Ghost. A man who never revealed his true strength, yet he still forced Snow to remove the ring during their battle. That alone was proof of how terrifying Ghost's true form was. Defeating him would require nothing less than my full strength. Come, Valerian. The serpent tattoo on my hand flared to life, burning violently as a terrifying black sword extended from my grasp. Valerian's aura alone was suffocating. Ghost knew that if I wielded this sword, he wouldn't stand a chance. On the other hand, if he wanted to escape, there was nothing I could do to stop him. He was wary of me, that much was clear. Resting my sword on my shoulder, I smirked. So, shall we test your Reaper's form against my blade? Ghost's expression shifted immediately. How? Did you think you were the only one gathering intelligence? You're not the only one playing these little games, Ghost Umbra. In truth, I had known about it from the start. Now, he was on the defensive. No one had ever seen his final form, not even his father, Mist. Yet here he was hearing it from a complete outsider. Speaking of Mist. Oh, and I also know that the Court of Shadows isn't loyal to Mikar Valerian or the Imperial family. Fascinating, isn't it? I could see the shift in his expression. Naturally, every word I spoke would have been a death sentence anywhere else. Now, I wasn't the only one forced into a corner. He couldn't afford to let me leave either. We're in quite the predicament, aren't we? Silence. Then Ghost drew his daggers. Every time I think I've seen through you, I realize I've only been chasing a mirage. You're right, Fry Starlight. One of us has to die here. I nodded, smirking. That's one possibility. I raised Valerian only to let it fade away. But it's not the only one. My sword returned to its tattooed form, leaving Ghost visibly surprised. What I needed now wasn't another enemy. It was an ally. What's the meaning of this? I'll be the front. Ghost Umbra. There was no point in turning someone with his abilities into an enemy. That would be more trouble than it was worth. I will fight in the light, and you will fight in the shadows, just as you always intended. We both hold enough leverage over each other to keep our blades at each other's throats. So let's strike a deal. The moment either of us becomes a true threat to the other, we end it, no hesitation. A fragile alliance, built on mutual destruction. A bond that kept us closer than anyone else, close enough to deliver a fatal blow at any time. This was the best way to handle an assassin like Ghost. So, what do you say, Ghost Umbra? Would he accept? Or would he force my hand and make me kill him here and now? His answer was something I was eager to hear. Chapter 118. The Serpent's Head. Fry Starlight's POV. I was getting used to the silence around me. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned, almost laughably so. Too perfect. Only 5 days remained until the end of the training period at House Moonlight. Recently, I had gained a lot. After continuous training with Carmen, I was now just one step away from breaking into Class C. My body had endured far more than any ordinary human could. Carmen, on the other hand, could break into Class SS whenever she wanted, but I asked her to hold off. Let's just say I wanted an extra trump card. Something was brewing in the shadows. I could feel it in the way people looked at me. Whatever was coming, it was close. Meanwhile, Ada remained withdrawn from everyone, growing paler and more exhausted by the day, as if suffering from severe anemia. There was still so much I didn't understand. But with what I had now, I could only hope I'd be ready. Now we had officially entered day 26. I stood in the training ground as usual, except this time my shadow was darker. Oh right, I forgot to mention, I had gained an unexpected ally, a powerful piece with potential far surpassing Carmen's. and I had just the right use for him. Let everyone begin. Krauser Moonlight, the overseer of our training, called out. As always, Frost wasted no time, attacking me immediately with a thin ice spear. The strike was incredibly fast, yet I could tell he was holding back. His spear was aimed at my right shoulder, just inches from piercing through and splattering my hot blood onto the cold ground. But it struck nothing but air. With a swift movement and perfect timing, I dodged, so smoothly that Frost hesitated for a moment. He quickly adjusted, following up with 2 rapid swings, each one faster than the last. Yet, just like before, I evaded both at the last possible moment. Without realizing it, every eye in the room had turned toward us. Even Instructor Krauser had furrowed his brows. Frost attacked 10 times and I dodged 10 times. Of course, neither I nor anyone else noticed the ability that was quietly glowing in my stats. Shadow Adaptation 07. After enduring countless strikes for 25 days, my body had begun to instinctively respond to Frost's movements. I wasn't using any of my real abilities, not even Ascension. This level of performance came purely from my raw strength, phantom steps, and hawk eyes. Even at this pitiful level, I was able to avoid the attacks of someone far stronger than me. But it didn't last long. My body had adapted only to Frost's current speed. The moment he pushed himself even slightly harder, we were back to square one. Bit by bit, I could no longer dodge or block his strikes, and eventually he overwhelmed me, leaving me battered with more than a few injuries. After staring at me for a moment, Frost turned and walked away, leaving me sprawled on the ground. I pushed myself up, inspecting my fresh wounds. Despite the beating, I could feel it. That strange ability, it was progressing. Slowly but surely. It wouldn't be long before I unlocked the first stage of this peculiar power. Something to look forward to, for better or worse. Good match. I looked up to find a hand extended toward me. Tisage, what match? I just got beaten up, I muttered. I took Danzo's hand as he effortlessly pulled me to my feet. But for a moment, you almost caught everyone off guard. Those movements weren't normal. Danzo's words made me think. How did others perceive me when I was immersed in training my shadow adaptation? To me, everything seemed to slow down, and I could anticipate my opponent's attacks before they landed. But from an outsider's perspective, it must have looked bizarre. Dodging at the last second over and over again. This level is natural after a month of enduring this kind of shit with him. The next few minutes passed with Danzo and me chatting about random topics. Technically, I was much older than him, mentally speaking. Yet somehow, we still managed to hold a natural conversation. That was mainly because I had based his personality on a real friend of mine when I wrote about him. A connection like this was inevitable. As we stood side by side, I couldn't help but notice the sheer difference in our physiques. Not that I was scrawny, far from it. My body was perfectly proportioned, every muscle in place, giving me an athletic, balanced frame. But Danzo was something else entirely. The veins in his forearms alone looked like they were about to burst. Look at this mountain of muscle. You've bulked up again. How do you even grow like that? I asked. Danzo glanced at his own body, then looked back at me with a blank expression. I don't know. I train, eat, take a dump, sleep, and when I wake up, it's just there. He made it sound so easy. His strength had skyrocketed recently, but my training wasn't any less intense than his. I suppose that was the difference between swordsmen like me and walking tanks like him. Regardless, I cast a quick glance at the rest of my teammates. Aside from Ghost, who was still reluctant to reveal his true strength, Selena was the only one seriously engaging with House Moonlight's mages. I assumed she was trying to find her signature magic. Look at all those scribbles. I'll never understand what those mages are doing. Danzo had never been interested in magic to begin with. Well, not everyone was meant to be a mage. What Selena was attempting now was to reach her own signature and discover her ideal magical color. A signature was a mage's defining trait, an absolute ability unique to them. In Kai Luke's case, his signature was simple yet terrifying, allowing him to create an infinite number of magic circles. That alone made him an exceptionally dangerous opponent. Signatures varied from person to person, and among all of them, I knew just how powerful Selina's would be. In fact, I could give her a crucial hint, one that would push her toward a level she wouldn't reach anytime soon otherwise. But there was nothing in it for me, so I didn't even consider it. I'd leave the burden of dealing with this world's problems to Snow. As for me, I had enough of my own. When your body adapts to a single routine, especially one forged in hell, you begin to drown in its endless weight, struggling to keep pace. Blue, that tiny creature, had become my sanctuary, my escape from the relentless pressure bearing down on me. But no matter how much I searched, I would never find her, unless she found me first. That was an undeniable truth I had long since accepted. Yet, despite knowing this, I still found myself returning, again and again, to the place where we had first met. And I found myself staring, too often, at the image of that man. If I studied his features carefully, I could see it. This is what my body will become one day. He looked imposing, powerful, Abraham Starlight. But he wasn't my father. I ran my fingers over my cold skin. This face, it was mine now. This smooth yet unyielding flesh, my own. Seeing my reflection over and over had gradually blurred the memory of what I once looked like, before I came to this world. Abraham Starlight, thin threads are desperately trying to bind me to you. I had solved the riddle of the cryptic advice. The system was toying with me directly this time. Unlike the first piece of advice I received in the Nightmare Lands, which had been nearly impossible to decipher, this one was laid bare before me. As if the system was whispering, "Here, the answer is right in front of you." And the answer was simple: Ada Starlight. The first part of the advice mentioned estrogen, a female hormone. Same blood referred to the bond of kinship between Ada and me. And Tricell, that was the name of an organization from a well-known game, Resident Evil, I used to play in my previous world. There was even a character named Ada who was part of it. It was all painfully obvious. Ada was the answer. She was clearly planning something, but I had no idea how she was supposed to be the solution. If Ada was my only way to survive, then I wouldn't hesitate to use her. However, I wanted to avoid that as much as possible. That girl had helped me a lot, unlike everyone else who despised the original owner of this body and wished for his death. For now, I would find my own way on my own terms. You seem lost in thought. A family reunion. A heavy voice cut through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. I turned to find its source. Lord Baylor. I stood beside the man who had shaped this family more than anyone else in the past century. Baylor stepped forward, his gaze locked onto the image before us. Abraham Starlight, a star that burned brighter than any other. He lived his life at the very peak. I responded slowly. Yes, and he died at the peak as well. Baylor nodded, a faint smile playing on his lips. We all have our roles to play, Fry. Your father was entrusted with the greatest task of all, and he fulfilled it flawlessly, saving the entire empire. But he died in the end. Baylor stepped closer, too close, his smile unwavering. Of course he died. He was so powerful that many saw him as the true ruler of this world. He paused for a moment, then continued. But he was just one man with just one heart, and the heart is far more fragile than most believe. With his slender fingers, Baylor pressed against my chest, right where my heart was. The moment he touched me, a familiar sensation surged through me. A breath of cold air slipped from my lips as an icy grip coiled around my heart, tightening ever so slightly. The curse, it was activating. I forced myself to stay upright, cursing under my breath in every language I knew. So, it was you, the worst-case scenario. The one who had cursed this body, the bastard responsible for his own family's ruin, was standing right in front of me. Oh, dear Fry, it seems you've forgotten your role. A sharp, searing pain tore through my skull as fragmented memories flooded my mind. Memories that belonged to Fry. What they? Baylor's fingers tapped against my chest again, slow and deliberate, sending waves of unbearable cold through my body. You forced yourself into this game as an important piece. Now it's time to finish what you started. I clenched my teeth, trying to grasp the meaning behind his words. Why would someone as powerful as you resort to such pathetic tricks? Aren't you the lord of this damned family? I braced myself against the suffocating cold. If you want to kill me, then do it now. Baylor merely shook his head at my defiance. Why would I kill you, Fry Starlight? With a single touch, my legs buckled, and I collapsed to the ground, barely clinging to consciousness. You were the one who threw yourself into this mess, and for that, I am grateful. You have been the perfect whetstone for Drogo's daughter. And now, you will complete your task and finally rest in peace. Darkness crept into my vision as his voice echoed in my ears. 3 days from now, you will face your final battle against those in this family who wish for your death. I know it's unfair, so I've decided to grant you a slight advantage in preparation. Baylor Moonlight patted my back, his hypocrisy suffocating. I won't interfere in your battle, so don't worry. I won't be the one to decide your fate, but don't even think about running. If you do, the dagger lodged in your heart will tear you apart from the inside, and you will die in the most agonizing way imaginable. We wouldn't want that, would we? With one final tap on my chest, I felt my consciousness slip away, drowning in the abyss. And the last thing I heard, good luck with your final struggle. Make it entertaining. Chapter 119, Seeds of Chaos. Fry Starlight's POV. Shit. What the hell was I thinking when I wrote characters like this? Baylor Moonlight was a sick man, one who had spent far too long drowning in his brother's shadow. And now, here he was, standing before me. Fry had been nothing more than a tool to him. It seemed that the original plot I wrote had gaps, and somehow those gaps had been filled in automatically, leading to this moment. I was facing someone infinitely stronger than me. Worse still, he had complete control over me. After all, he was the one who cursed me. I leaned back against the cold wall, my thoughts racing toward the inevitable. The real issue wasn't even Baylor. Compared to the monsters that would appear later in the story, he was nothing more than a warm-up act. Even if I managed to survive this with the way I was now, the way I handled things, would I really make it? No, not a chance. Then there was only one solution. I couldn't stay in this world. But suddenly, my thoughts took a sharp turn. Maybe, just maybe, I should burn everything down for the sake of my survival. In a dimly lit chamber, 2 figures sat together while a third lurked in the shadows. Dark purple energy pulsed through the air, sending waves of raw aura that crackled and twisted like a living force. Fry, that's enough.
No.
Drenched in sweat and blood, I kept pushing my body past its limits, Carmen assisting me in this self-inflicted torment. This isn't enough. By now, my body had stopped sweating altogether. Instead, blood was seeping from my pores, filling the air with a mist of crimson. The impurities inside me were pouring out of every opening they could find. Thin red streaks ran from my eyes and nose, dripping onto the cold floor. A wave of nausea hit me hard, and the fragile thread holding me conscious began to fray. But this was nothing. I had to break into rank C today. Cracks of violet energy surged across my skin, as if something inside me was desperate to break free. This is madness. For the first time, Carmen seemed to grasp just how unhinged the person she was dealing with truly was. His previous training had already been beyond reason, but he had completed it. And now, this was the 3rd time he had utterly destroyed his body. Yet he still wasn't stopping. I knew how I looked, deranged, desperate, but I had no intention of stopping. Minutes dragged on, my body locked in a war against itself, until finally, the burning flame inside me flickered out, and I collapsed onto the ground, my body in ruins. Huff, huff, huff. Carmen stared at me for a long moment before exhaling slowly. Another failure. I had failed to break into rank C again. Again. What? I said again. Pull the aura out of me. I barked the order as I chugged recovery potions one after another. Fry, what you're doing is impossible. Your body will stop responding to the potions soon. You've been overusing them to the extreme. And beyond that, you're going to inflict permanent internal injuries. Even if your body is special. This? Carmen. My voice was ice cold. I told you to extract the aura, not lecture me on things I already know. With clear reluctance, Carmen obeyed, once again pulling the searing energy from my shattered body. The process dragged on endlessly. 2 days before the deadline, I didn't go to the temple's special training. So what? Those bastards wanted me dead soon anyway. Why should I bother showing up for them now? Inside a sealed training ground, I sat in the center of a large pool of blood. Since the start of my closed training, I had passed out 3 times and repeated the process 7 times. I still hadn't broken through C rank, and now my strange body was screaming at me to stop. I knew this was its absolute limit. I was pushing myself to reach the required level in time, crafting my final plans in the hopes that they would be enough. I won't lie, this time my chances of survival were slim. Death was closer than ever before. So be it. Death could take me when it truly deserved me. Inside another room. One that was locked most of the time. A lone girl lay awake, her exhaustion evident. Carmen stood before Ada. The dark circles beneath Ada's eyes were prominent, her skin ghastly pale. Ada? Are you sure you can handle this? Silent, Ada nodded slowly. It's not like I have a choice. Even with all her years of experience, Carmen wasn't certain about what lay ahead. How is he? She was asking about Fry. He's doing his best in his own way. Ada nodded with a faint smile. She knew her brother was no longer that weak boy. But even in his current state, she knew his fate. Or rather, someone had shown it to her. Girl, you do realize that when this is over, a great family will fall. And we might be on the losing side. I know. Ada smiled weakly. To be honest, under normal circumstances, with equal chances, I wouldn't even dream of facing someone like Baylor. I can't match him in strength or strategy. But this particular confrontation was different. Too many pieces had been set in place, as if everything had been predestined long ago. As if someone had been manipulating everything from behind the scenes, carefully positioning the pieces before stepping back to watch. Ada was vaguely aware of such an existence, but she didn't dare act against it, didn't even dare to think about it. How many people could see fate itself and control it? Even Mikar wasn't close to that level. Those who guided the currents from afar were destined to remain enigmatic forces, ones no one dared to defy. Winter fell. A peculiar woman strolled through the city, humming cheerfully. Her white hair and the distinctive features of the Moonlight family made her stand out. She walked leisurely, a faint blush dusting both her cheeks. Her smile, her glassy eyes. They were both beautiful and mysterious at the same time. Suddenly, something inside her clothing lit up, a violet crystal. Her smile widened, growing bigger and bigger, as she pressed the button to receive the call. The moment she did, a well-dressed man in a formal suit appeared, his expression cold and menacing. "Hello!" The girl greeted him cheerfully, yet the man remained silent, his frown unwavering. "Why the gloomy face? Most men are thrilled to see me." Her playful tone barely masked the growing tension. Behind the screen, the man's fist clenched ever so slowly. "Do you even realize how reckless this is? Marching straight into the heart of the Moonlight family's stronghold alone." For a brief moment, the girl's smile faltered, but only for a moment. "Oh, don't be like that. That scowl of yours and your endless negativity are exactly why demons don't like you, Lindman." Gavid Lindman wished she were standing before him at this very moment. He would have cut her down with ether without hesitation. "Spare me your cursed nonsense. Madame A, you know we need all 4 lords present, especially now. And yet, you still do whatever you please." Madame A studied the glowing crystal in her hand for a moment before waving lazily, her lips curling into a sly smile. "Lindman, bye-bye." She ended the call without a care and continued her stroll, humming an unfamiliar tune to herself. Now then, which one should I kill first? Inside an opulent chamber, where an ornate throne loomed tall, the room overlooked the entire city of Winterfell from above. Seated in silence, Baelor gazed out at the world below, his expression unreadable. Behind him, a young man stepped forward. Father. Baelor took a moment before turning toward his son.
Come.
He gestured for Frost to sit, meeting his gaze directly. Speak your mind. Father, everything is in place. Oh? You've taken care of it? Of course. He's just a nobody. Baelor shook his head, displeased with what he had just heard. Just because he's weaker than you dismiss him as a nobody? Forgive my insolence. Father, I would never underestimate an opponent, but I've already positioned every piece where it needs to be. Even against someone as insignificant as him, I will not hold back. I will present his head, and the heads of those who stand behind him, on the very spear you have entrusted to me. The great spear Rimshard materialized in Frost's hand. And once it's done, the Starlight family will be ours. Baelor nodded faintly, a small smile playing on his lips. Remember this. You are on your own. You are the Lord now, I will not intervene. So show me what you're truly capable of. As you command, Father. Frost bowed deeply before departing, a sinister grin stretching across his face. He had just been handed the easiest victory in history. A fragile young man and an even weaker family lord. The only potential obstacle was Carmen, but she was merely an S+ awakened. There were countless ways to deal with her. Frost could hardly contain his satisfaction. His father had just given him the perfect opportunity to cement his name as the family's lord without lifting a finger. Chapter 120. The Massacre of Fire and Blood. As various factions lurked on the battlefield, bracing for the impending storm of chaos, one destined to shake the very foundations of the Empire in the near future. A lone girl stood in the distance, silently observing the tempest on the verge of erupting. With a somber expression, she gazed ahead, her mind adrift in memories of that fateful night. The night that had upended her life and bound her to the will of that man. Prince Aegon Valyrian, the monster who wore human skin. Closing her eyes, the events of that night resurfaced, vivid and unrelenting, as if they had happened just yesterday. 1 month ago, at the very moment the assault on the temple concluded and Kai Luke fell, another scheme had been unfolding in the shadows, one that no one had even suspected. Selena Hemsworth POV. Ha! I awoke slowly, feeling as though I had been lost in an endless slumber. Thick ropes bound my wrists and bare ankles. My body was drenched, my hair tangled and disheveled. It took only a few moments for the haze in my mind to clear. I was tied to a narrow wooden chair, but I wasn't alone. The sounds of muffled sobs and restrained cries reached my ears, sending a chill through me. I wasn't the only one here. Around me, restrained just as I was, sat several young people. Faces I recognized immediately. They were my classmates from the magic class. We were arranged in a circle, each of us bound in the same way. But unlike me, they had been gagged, robbed of even the ability to speak. Beyond our group, I could see more captives, many, in fact. The dim light barely revealed their faces, but the sheer number of them was staggering. Selena, a voice called my name. I turned to see a familiar young man. Bound like me, but unlike the others, he wasn't gagged. Xavier? What's happening? How did we get here? Xavier was also a classmate of mine under the sorcerer Kailuk. Usually composed, his face was a mess of distress this time. I don't know. When I came to, we were already here. What the hell is going on? The last thing I remember is what happened at the temple, the betrayal of Kailuk and the sorcerers who followed him. Speaking of which, some of them were here with us. The situation was such a disaster that, for a brief moment, I wished I had never woken up. Selena, can you use your magic? Right, magic. Why hadn't I thought of that? I immediately tried to channel the magic within me, but to my horror, couldn't. The power that had been a part of me my entire life was completely out of reach. You too, huh? His words confirmed my fears. He couldn't use his magic either. Our magic hadn't simply been sealed. No. It felt as though someone, was crushing us under an invisible force, rendering us incapable of accessing our own power. Someone terrifyingly strong. As the muffled stares of our bound classmates bore into us and tension hung thick in the air, I forced myself to stay calm. Selena, we need to keep it together and find a way out of this. I nodded at Xavier. That was the only logical course of action. We didn't even know who had taken us. First, we should. Clap, clap, clap. Slow, deliberate claps echoed through the chamber as lights flickered on one by one, momentarily blinding us. As our vision adjusted, the grim reality of our surroundings became clear. We were imprisoned in a massive underground hall, encircled by hundreds of captives. Most of them were in terrible condition. I barely registered the faces of the countless people around us. Men and women, children and elders, because in that moment, only one figure demanded attention. Golden hair, golden eyes, a face so infamous that I would recognize it anywhere. He was known throughout the empire. Prince Aegon. He moved forward at a steady pace, holding something in his hand. You're finally awake, huh? You have no idea how long I've been waiting for you. The prince? What is happening here? Why are we? Before Xavier could finish his sentence, Aegon's foot crashed into his chest, sending him flying backward off his chair. Silence. Do you want me to gag you as well? Irritation flickered across Aegon's face as he ran a hand through his hair. Idiots! You don't even know how to take advantage of the gift I've given you. In his hand, he held a large container filled with a strange liquid. Then, without warning, he began pouring it over the captives, one by one at random. You know, mages are quite special. Some struggled, recoiling from the sensation, while others trembled as the thick substance drenched them. Special, a very special. When my turn came, the moment the liquid touched my skin, I recognized it instantly. A fire accelerant, highly flammable. Panic twisted my gut as my mind raced, trying to make sense of Aegon's intentions. Then, with chilling ease, he grabbed a girl's wrist and slowly, deliberately, crushed it. Her muffled screams of agony sent a cold shiver through my body. Mages have such delicate bodies. That's why I have a particular fondness for them. Aegon stood at the center of the room, his golden eyes sweeping over us like a predator watching his prey. Then, with a snap of his fingers, a spark of electricity crackled to life. Now then, who should have the honor first? You. Or perhaps, you, my dear Selena? Aegon, what are you? Shoo! With a flick of his hand, my voice was cut off completely. No talking. I'm the only voice that matters here. This is my show. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest as silence swallowed the room. Aegon exhaled in frustration, rubbing his temple. First, I had to deal with your teacher's mess, and now this? More trash for me to clean up. The mages here had such big dreams. Chaos, rebellion, and boom!
A magnifique explosion.
A firework display to bring their little fantasies to life. He let out a sharp laugh, one that carried no warmth, only madness. Here? In my empire? On my land? With a slow, measured stride, Aegon approached one of the bound figures, grabbing his chin and tilting his head toward the gathered crowd. Look closely, my dear revolutionary. The young man, one of the traitors, hesitated before obeying. The moment his gaze landed on whatever Aegon wanted him to see, his entire body convulsed. A muffled, agonized scream tore from his throat, his gag barely able to suppress the sheer terror consuming him. His eyes widened, shaking so violently in their sockets they looked as if they might burst. Oh, such raw emotion. You, who were willing to blow up the temple and slaughter thousands, now trembling over a few insignificant lives. Do it. At Aegon's command, masked executioners emerged from the shadows. Without hesitation, They descended upon the captives in front of us, blades flashing as they cut them down one by one. Blood splattered the stone floor, seeping into the cracks as the bound mage thrashed wildly, his muffled cries of horror growing more desperate. The butchery stopped after exactly 6 kills. Why the rage? Why the sorrow? It was you. You were the one who chose them to die. Aegon's fingers sparked with lightning again, the flickering glow illuminating the traitor's trembling face. Oh? You want it that badly? Then take it. A single crackling spark leaped from his fingertips, igniting the boy's body in an instant. Mages were weak in body. Our flesh burned easily, our pain lasted longer. Aegon didn't care. He simply moved to the next. Then the girl after him. And another, one by one. And suddenly, I understood why everyone screamed when Aegon pointed at the crowd. My eyes darted frantically, scanning the captives. And then I saw them. 3 familiar faces. A man, a woman, a small child. No.
No.
The word ripped from my throat before I could stop it. Those 3. My mother, my father, my little brother. Aegon let out a slow, exasperated sigh. What now, Selena? Didn't I tell you to keep quiet? Why are you doing this? Not everyone here betrayed the Empire. Not. Slap. The force of his backhand sent my head snapping to the side. The impact so harsh I nearly lost consciousness. Oh? There you are. All this emotion now, just because you saw your family? Am I right? You think I care about whatever filth festered in your pathetic little swamp? Who's innocent? Who's guilty? That nonsense. What do you think I am? A judge? He stepped back, rubbing his temple again as if this entire ordeal was beneath him. As you can see, there's a lot happening here. I have so many thoughts swirling in my mind. The executioners moved through the crowd, slaughtering at random, their screams piercing the air. With a mere snap of his fingers, Aegon continued his ruthless purge, reducing them to smoldering husks. My father, the Empire, the Ultras. They all call for me. Aegon, Aegon, Aegon. My father, my followers, and those fools from the Ultras do the same. Aegon let out a hysterical laugh. They all want me. They claw at my mind, do this, do that. Demons here, humans there. Who do they think I am? Tell me, to whom does everything in this wretched empire belong? My foolish father? The ignorant masses, blissfully unaware of the truth? Or those damned creatures called demons? No, 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 no. He seized my head, his face so close I could feel his breath. Everything belongs to me. Them or me? Me or them? He laughed, his voice unraveling into ragged sobs. Staggering, he hoisted Xavier off the ground. His jaw was shattered, blood soaking his face from the previous blow. He couldn't even form words. Oh, I know. I trembled, my entire body recoiling in terror as I watched this deranged man. All I could muster were 2 words. You bastard. His ramblings meant nothing to me. My thoughts were fixed on one thing alone. I know, Selena. I know. You're angry. Both of you are. By now, the air was thick with the stench of burning flesh, the heat of the flames, and the blood pooling beneath the corpses. Family. Family is everything. There was a time when I would have done anything to protect my sister. I was ready to kill for her. When it comes to those we love, with everyone else dead, only Xavier, our families, and I remained. Aegon's attention fell solely on us. When it comes to family, what are we without it? Ha! But it's just a foolish notion, love, belonging. Aegon, my son, my brother. Now, I'd stab my own sister if I had to, but she refuses to die. She won't just let go. Damn her. My enemies are everywhere. Here, there. And I love crushing my enemies. Now, I have a new one. An enemy who hides in the shadows. And he's good enough to disrupt my plans. A new ex. Aegon took slow, deliberate steps toward the remaining crowd. Each one felt like a hammer blow to my chest. "Don't touch them!" I screamed, struggling so violently that my chair crashed to the ground. An old man, a woman, a child. Aegon cupped my little brother's face. The poor boy was so paralyzed with fear that he wet himself. How many like them have I already killed? How much are these empty lives really worth? Get your hands off him! I tried crawling toward him, but my body refused to obey. Well then, the fate of these miserable creatures now rests in my hands. Blame me. Blame your weakness. Blame this cruel world. It doesn't matter. This is an exchange, a trade of souls. Aegon turned back, his heavy steps echoing through the silence. A trade that demands the right price, because in the end, it has always been about the ones we love. And in that moment I understood I was no longer free. I was a slave to the monster before me.